Welcome to the Sentient Sky, a podcast on astrology, the cycles, and sacred intelligence.
Presented to you through a Southern Hemisphere lens by Yvonne Wildheart and Rebecca Holly.
Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of the Sentient Sky podcast. I am Yvonne Wildheart, and I just want to welcome you all to the September forecast of 2025. And for those who are wondering, Becky is unfortunately and sadly not with us today. She won't be joining us due to a tragic passing of her beloved relative. And I just want to take this moment just to wrap Becky and her beautiful family up in so much love and tenderness, and just holding them all and surrounding them all with just this brilliant love that is all here for them. Mm-hmm. But what we have is a special guest, and I'd like to warmly welcome one of my dear teachers, as much as she would just go, oh, is the incredible astrologer, rites of passage guide and priestess, the dearest Grace Funk, all the way coming from us from Canada. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's been such a pleasure just to be in this process of arriving here in this powerful space conversation that you're creating. It's felt like a cervix kind of opening, just having a few conversations and opening to this portal, and I feel blessed, just blessed to be here.
I feel very blessed that you have said yes to joining us here. It's so wonderful, and I thank you, and we're looking forward to hearing your insights and your teachings on your knowingness of this great cosmic web that we're all a part of. So welcome. Very exciting to have you as a special guest. So today, we're going to be looking at the key transits, patterns, and energies that will be emerging throughout September 2024. We are recording this on Friday, the 6th of September at 10 o'clock. It's 10:13 p.m. now as we speak on Friday the 6th. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a retrospect of what has already been for September and then looking forward. So some of the transits we're going to be looking and talking about this month will be the Uranus station retrograde, which was a few days ago, Capricorn, Pluto regression, so Pluto going back into Capricorn for the final time, it feels like the final showdown. Virgo New Moon, which we've just had, Mars moving into Cancer, which just happened 2 days ago. Blah, blah. The Pisces full moon eclipse, so we're into eclipse season now. We've got the equinox, and we're going to be talking about both the Mabon, which is autumn equinox, which is in the northern hemisphere, which is where Grace is, which is going to be great to have that insight. And of course, where I am coming from, which is just outside of Melbourne. So the spring equinox here at the Ostara point as the sun moves into Libra. We're going to be talking about the Venus going into Scorpio, Mercury conjunct the sun, which is a Cazimi, and many more things that are going to show up. So as always, we're going to be doing our invocation. So I invite you now, if you're feeling cold, just shutting your eyes and taking a deep breath and bringing your shoulders up and back and just opening up your heart space, just feeling where you're sitting, your body is in the chair, feeling as if you're growing some roots into the ground, and rolling your shoulders up and back again. And just imagine you're growing some tree branches from above your head, connecting to the skies above. And just feeling this sensation of being deeply rooted to here, to the great Mother Earth, and greatly connected to the great cosmic above. And feeling yourself in the center as I light our candle. And as we spiral from the center of our being, the void space within our very cells and our earthly body, we open up to the ever-expanding portal of galactic wisdom, knowledge, and consciousness. We call for full illumination of our unique universal map, our imprint of time and space. We call the stars, the planets, and all the spaces in between to speak to us and through us with crystalline clarity. May this transmission of galactic proportion shift us through the veils, expanding us beyond the realms of infinite creation. May we feel safe and held as we transmit this cosmic coding through our earthly vessels in service to the greater good of all beings, as we deeply remember that we are galactic citizens, ever-evolving conduits of the cosmic matrix, fulfilling our soul's mission and our beloved Earth at this time. And so it is, and bless it be. Bless it be, bless it be. Everyone out there, bless it be, Grace. Welcome. We're here. We've landed. Just a bit of housekeeping before we begin, to remember that all transits that we're going to be showing and speaking of, except for the Mabon, actually, which is really awesome to have, will be Australian Eastern Standard Time. And this is up to you to discern whether or not if any particular planets are influencing you or are important for you to keep in mind for your sun, moon, and rising sign. And please note that some may resonate and some may not, and that's okay. Just to be open and trust what you're feeling or sensing in all of this. You can connect with us at the Sentient Sky Patreon, and you're welcome to bring any questions that you have or comments. We would love, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, share your experience of your transits or what's unfolding for you if you're feeling called, or even give us a thumbs up and like us and share with us. This is how this work gets out. It's we're in for a very exciting month. So to begin with, before we begin, we're going to do a bit of a summary of what August had in store for us. So Grace, would you like to share any experiences of transits that you had during August to give an embodied sense of what August was and felt like out there in the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest, the Astro doesn't always speak so clearly or kind of hilariously as this time, but I had the pleasure of kind of watching it play out this month with the Mercury retrograde, kind of starting off in Virgo. For me, that's my 6th house, and going back into Leo, 5th house. That was starting on the 4th of August for me, my time over here in Canada. And yeah, I had a powerful time sitting by the fire, literally reconceiving of myself, reading my teacher's book, Janine Pavati Baker, her amazing body of work called Conscious Conception that she wrote with her husband, and actually in a huge collaboration. It's that is a cosmic book if you want to dive into it. But the sense of cosmic connection is something I've been cosmic conscious conception, but I'll tag cosmic connection as well. Is something I've been journeying with since the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction back in April, doing the Siren Call tour with Jane. So to dip back into that work and to know myself, reconfiguring and reconceiving of myself in, at close to the beginning of that Mercury retrograde time was really powerful. It's a powerful reclaiming and settling, obviously very internal. But then by the full moon in that cycle, so Mercury is still going backwards, or looking like it's going backwards. We had that full moon in Aquarius. I woke up that morning with a bee in my bonnet to manifest a vision, a little idea that I'd had for a while. Very humble, almost kind of stupid idea. You could say, I want to put a flyer up at the local shopping mall about my tarot readings. And it felt, I would say, I'm using that word stupid in quotation marks. It's like not a particularly effective strategy. I don't know how many people would walk past on the corridor going to the toilet and then stop and get excited about a tarot reading. But it felt like a significant act to put out my work into a public space, especially here, where I have had a bunch of beliefs that this historically conservative religious community won't really want what I'm offering here. I feel like a true misfit here. Anyway, so to wake up with that impulse to just do it and do the flyer and get the booking thing it was half done, and I finished the other half and trotted off to the shopping mall and put on, even made sure I had the clothes on that felt in keeping with that vision. I didn't quite
Any
go
crushed velvet.
all out
Imagine crushed
priestess,
velvet.
but I could have put my granny headscarf on, but I didn't. Yeah, so that felt beautiful, enacting that. And then what happened over the next week or two was that vision that I had of doing readings there, while still viable, it also shifted into, well, something else could happen. So that's how I would see Mercury retrograde at play, that what I thought would be playing out, other new possibilities arrived, so that by the time it got to the end of the retrograde, I actually was cycling back to the mall to take that flyer down. I didn't need to do that particular vision in that particular way anymore. And I was fine with that, even though it felt like it could be perceived as a backflip or being wishy-washy, because I had also shared that story with my people. But as a person who has a like Aquarian Sun, Taurus Moon, quite a fixed, stubborn energy, to just be easily rolling into with that mutable, I guess, Mercury traveling through mutable Virgo and fixed Leo, kind of just loosening things up. I was actually really happy to not hold on to that idea just because I thought of it and now that's how it had to be. I really appreciated that fluidity. And yes, I think it's hilarious that after all that, I took it down to, in a sense, it looks like I have nothing. Like the Mercury retrograde, I tried it and now it's gone. But what I actually have is clarity about and focus about where I want to head. Okay, let's just stick with the astrology and pull off some of the significant number of visions that are there with that, as opposed to dispersing myself in all the fun things, because tarot is so fun. Tarot is so Leo in the 5th house for me, but I felt like I got to keep it just for me to play around with. It doesn't have to be loaded up with this livelihood piece for now, and things can change in the future. So yeah,
I love that.
That's one piece. The one other little piece I'll add is the sun moving through Leo during August passed by my North Node at 29 Leo, and on that day you reached out to do this podcast and someone else reached out asking for a particular reading, and my teacher Jane and I fell into this unexpected conversation, and we worked out that I would help her out organizing some stuff for next year. So it was that for me also was an example of the sun, the warmth of the sun, the invitation to shine or be a bit more visible, just passing on through as a small but powerful influence on that North Node, South Node axis.
Oh, I love that. And just for the viewers and listeners, that we share the same teacher, Jane Hardwick Collins, as well. So just a acknowledgement to Jane as well, who has very much influenced our both in how we, I think, move throughout the world, actually. So absolutely. Shout out to Jane Hardwick Collins. We love you, Jane. Yeah, so I had a big Mercury retrograde as well, and I felt like it was a really powerful Mercury retrograde. There was lots going on within that Mercury retrograde period, but for those who have been following us at the Sentient Sky podcast for a few, this is our 6th episode, but have heard the story of my computer blow up that happened at the first Mercury and Uranus square. Which was in Mercury and Leo and Uranus in Taurus, so forming that fixed square. And my computer sort of carked it, and I've been on this computer journey, but it's really interesting because it's linked down to my 2nd house of my personal resources and financial, coming from me, and I rely on my computer to make a living, because this is where I do pretty much all of my work. So it's been such a journey of borrowing computers and not having the right equipment to host the massive programs that I need to do my work, and it's just been really interesting. And and how it's been interesting how it's all linked up to technology as well, which is a very mercurial thing. Is it's really interesting. And I've, throughout that time saving money to buy new proper good equipment, but having people offering me money to go, yeah, I just got this $2,000 just sitting here. Would you like to borrow it so you can buy a new, like, you need to work, sort of thing. And as that Mercury started to end its retrograde at the end, I just had this massive sort of insight about how money moves through the world. And I sort of felt like that technology piece of the, how the World Wide Web and the networks and how it's like a collective energy. And I was like, wow, it sort of just had this vision of money coming into me and then going out and then going to someone else, and how money moves through the world. And I just saw it like, yeah, I guess it's really interesting just thinking of, that maybe the first signs of that Uranus going into Gemini. Yeah, it's just that money movement but in this greater collective space, almost like the internet. So that was really interesting, and just maybe tweaking my view on my own personal finances and where it comes from and where it goes. So it was just really, really interesting. And by the end of the retrograde, I'd brought a new computer, and it should be arriving just as Mercury moves out of its shadow period. So it's like, oh, that was my Mercury retrograde of this journey with this fucking computer. But at the end of it, the result was, and it's just funny, Greece and I were talking about this before, it was better than what I had expected, because the computer I got it's a complete upgrade by far than what I'd already had. So it's like, oh, that was a big journey to get something better than what it was before. But it required me to get to that place of just, it took me on a big journey of insights and reviewing and seeing with new lenses, and how energy and information moves, and money moving in with that second house. So yeah, that was quite an epic journey. I have in my notes here, says full moon chaos, with that full moon in Aquarius, just that squaring Uranus. And for me, it was like, we were sort of, my friend Natasha and I were just sort of sitting, we were up, she was at my house, and we were sort of just talking about this. And it's like, what is going to happen next? Because things were happening so fast, but really big news, like not necessarily for myself, but from the collective. And it's really interesting because Taurus for me is in the 11th house of friends and groups. And so I was getting information, big information of coming from people out, friends and stuff like that, who have had big experiences, just bang, 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 bang. And we're like, whoa, you just wasn't sure what was going to happen next. So I felt that chaotic nature of Uranus sort of hitting that full illumination in that, Aquarius in my 8th house of death, rebirth, and sort of, whoa. And it really felt that you never knew what was going to happen next, because the themes that were coming from the people around me were life and death. So it was just so fascinating to feel that, it was really not knowing what was going to happen next, and just trying to find stability in all of that if there wasn't any. And then the last one, I had a Venus trine Uranus blow up, where I had this really unexpected, it was an easy blow up because things happened really quickly, where it was like this confrontation with my kid's dad, and it was stuff that hadn't been said that I've been holding on for such a long time, and it just sort of snapped and things just came out, and it was like, whoa. So it happened easily, wasn't comfortable, but it happened easily, but it was sudden, but it came from the heart. So it was really interesting. It was like, wow. And we both sort of were in shock afterwards, and sort of wrote each other messages going, oh geez, that spiraled out of control really quickly, and I'm sorry. So it came really nice at the end, but things needed to be said that hadn't been said for 4 years. So it was just like, well, okay, all right, there you go. Wasn't easy, but it was emotionally comfortable, but it was an easy movement of lightning fast matters of the heart, you could say. Yeah.
And Yvonne, you said Venus trine Uranus there.
Yes. I thought it was the Venus squared that happened earlier in the month. And I went back and reviewed it. It was actually the trine.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it was the trine moment. If I remember, there was something back then as well. So maybe that was
That was closer to the new moon.
Yeah.
That square.
Yes, it was. It was the square. And something happened then too that was really, really scratchy. And that was, and it's sort of been building up until that trine. It just all of a sudden just went poof. But it wasn't, thank you. That was that.
So
that was that.
I guess then you could look out for the opposition when Venus gets exactly opposite Uranus as like a continuation of the story.
Yes.
Could be kind of looking out for stuff with, your kid's dad. And
that's right.
Kind of anticipating what's
going to happen next, and maybe get on the bit of the back foot, knowing the terrain a bit, and say, come on, we just need to sort some things out before that opposition, because otherwise that might not be really pretty.
Yeah, totally. That's a beautiful example of like working with it. So it doesn't have to be, so some of those harder aspects don't have to be the slap in the face if we've been consciously journeying with these inner terrains, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why I just love astrology, because you can sort of, predict or anticipate a transit that's coming, and put in, navigate the terrain, and put in structures in place that are more supportive, or, that can move things through a little bit easily than it otherwise wouldn't have, if you sort of just in it and just going, oh my God, what's happening, Yeah. Astrology at work. I love it.
At work, at life, work. At play, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's fully embodied in a life. All right. Shall we move on to September?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. So the main themes of September, it feels like adjustments, like even literal adjustments in the body after all the big things that have been happening over the past few months, probably I would say since the last eclipse. We are in eclipse season. September is the start of, into eclipse season. So seeing all the changes that are taking place, because we've had massive transits, so many big transits, and so many sort of, there feels like a fatigue, I think, in the air, just like, oh, how much more can we go? But I feel like that constant needing to readjust our viewpoints, or even, our bodies. I'm just feeling of the spine, and processing all that's happened, because I think there's been a lot that's happened for a lot of people, like really big things. Truth and mastery. I love what you said, Grace, and I had a planning meeting in the last couple of days, and I think that homework, Pluto into Capricorn, the homework's due at the end of November, when Pluto moves out of Capricorn for good. So there's a mastery point, but also this truth of the what was really hidden underneath all the things. So we'll talk about that. Sensing possible new future. So sensing especially with the new Pisces eclipse, Pisces and Virgo eclipse axes sort of coming into view a little bit. But again, it's eclipse, but so maybe a sense of it. And change is here, ready or not. Like, we've been talking about change. We've been talking, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. It's like, oh, it's here. It's here now. It's here now. And the transits that we're going to speak to will start to show us that. Yes. All right. So we'll bring up our first chart, which we're going to do a bit of retrospect view and look at the Virgo new moon that just happened on here at Eastern Standard Time on the 3rd of, let me see, getting it up. I always get clunky with sharing all the things. Here we go. All right, this is the chart of the Virgo new moon that happened on the 3rd of September here, Australian Eastern Standard Time at 11:55 a.m. in the morning. At 11 degrees Virgo, 11, lots of 11s happening here for those numerology people. So let's have a look. So Virgo, mutable earth. I'll just find my pen. There it is. So where it is on the chart. Yeah, right up near the midheaven here on this land, which is full view above us and what's happening. So 11 degrees Virgo. Virgo, as I said, mutable air. It's mutable air, mutable earth. So and it's the priestess. It's the priestess showing up to be in service, but looking at the body and how it moves, and digestion and processing, and getting to the details of what needs to happen next, where things need to go, moving this and that, there, here, there, and everywhere. It was in an opposition to Saturn as well, and loosely into coming off the back of that Jupiter and Saturn square that happened back in August. What was your experience of this Virgo new moon?
I found it hilarious that I had a new client, which is a more extended, multi-session engagement. And we had booked our first, after an initial conversation, we booked our first kind of real session together, just looking on the calendar as you do at the end of a conversation. Okay, yes, for me it was 4th of August, 2nd of September, sorry. And so there we are, we're having this first meeting under the kind of auspices of this new moon in Virgo. And when I looked at both of our charts, the new moon was within, I think, 1 degree of her ascendant at 10 Virgo. And for me, my ascendant ruler, Mars at 14 and Jupiter at 8. I've got that right. So this new moon right between two significant parts. I just have a full lineup in Virgo for me, 6th house. It just felt like a beautiful configuration of both of us showing up to, do some of that deep listening and trusting the process, trusting the details, trusting the unfolding, trusting our two bodies coming together, albeit in this digital realm, to do the recalibration and the realigning that they're really calling in, and that I am really wanting to be in service to. So it's just a beautiful affirmation of it. And the other thing I'd say about that new moon is that I really felt Saturn opposite, roughly opposite, in the form of life being short. I remember reading an article where someone way more in the business world, no one astro, more like a venture capitalist, speaking to, if life is short, then we can expect the shortness to surprise us. And that at the new moon, that just felt really pertinent. It gave me a new appreciation of all the mutable signs' capacity to not hold on to stuff, as someone who kind of takes a bit longer in general to process things, to just let go of the things a bit more quickly that don't serve or just aren't for right now. Just let them go, because life is short, and make sure we keep coming back to the important stuff, which our bodies, Virgo style, will tell us. That was some of the new moon for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting that you speak of your Virgo-ness. My Virgo-ness is here too, because this new moon happened between my Virgo moon and my Virgo Saturn. And just up the road of it, about 24 degrees, is my Virgo North Node. So it's this Virgo lineup happening here. And it's so funny that here we are in Virgo season with the Virgos, doing the thing. It's so interesting. And disseminating this information as the details are going in it. It's really, it's fascinating, isn't it? And showing up in that Virgo way of being in service, and very priestess-like. And I love that, introducing you as the priestess, and it just really deeply resonates with that, my Virgo moon and my Virgo Saturn as well. It's really interesting. And how I've just come off the back of my my second Saturn opposition that happened earlier this year as well. So it's that yeah, that's stepping into. It's been really interesting with this Saturn here opposite, and it's come up again actually in this Virgo new moon in terms of responsibilities, but also discipline in my thoughts, because it is sort of moving in between my ninth house and my third house. And um money's I think it's following off the back of that Mercury retrograde in my second house, that money's come back into focus again, of like um knowing where the money's going and where it's coming from, and becoming more responsible about that financial channel as well. So it's how that's sort of played in, and at this new moon, Mercury's still in Leo, in doing its stuff. So it's still covering the retrograde track that it has just journeyed on. So there's certainly a newness about it, but it's something that we've already are familiar with. So it's maybe a new perspective of the Leo parts of our charts as well, coming under this full moon. I mean, this new moon. And the lead up to this new moon was actually quite significant. We had Uranus station retrograde over here in Taurus, fixed Earth, at 27 degrees and 15 minutes. It's going to station direct on the 31st of January 2025 at 23 degrees Taurus. And interestingly enough, at this new moon, we had, just having a look in the Libra area of the chart, we had Black Moon Lilith, Venus, and the South Node all coming together conjunct. That actually was a conjunct exact on the 5th, so only yesterday. So this is still very much playing out, and we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. But when Uranus stations direct in January next year, there's going to be what a quincunx to Black Moon Lilith. Now, quincunx is a 150-degree separation in between. It will be Black Moon Lilith and Uranus in Taurus. And it's not a comfortable one, but she's there and she's right. It's a very exact quincunx. So it's, Black Moon Lilith, I feel, is she's here, she's present in this sort of stationing with this Uranus here. And what was it you said something about before about Black Moon Lilith in this?
Yeah, I work a lot with Lilith, and for me, the Black Moon face of her, she's kind of like a triple goddess to me, but her Black Moon face represents that wild sovereign wholeness that is in each of us, and often has gotten layered up and covered up with conditioning and cultural brainwashing. And so just to have her here in the mix, whether or not my brain can kind of go quincunx in the future with Uranus, it could mean so many things, and also kind of, I don't have a feeling of it yet. But it, for me, just most simply means that our wild sovereign wholeness is at play here, is at stake here. There's possibilities there about us claiming aspects of that maybe haven't been possible before, particularly riding on the back of the changes that Uranus has brought over these last, really since 2018 being in Taurus. That more is becoming possible. But the quincunx, if we're jumping to that, would mean, in my understanding, those kind of aspects require a conscious journeying, because there's not a natural, if you like, line of conversation.
Yeah.
But we can weave in those possibilities with our consciousness in our beings.
Yeah, and I just feel that with that sort of, maybe in that sort of blind spot that we might not see it directly, but she's there. There's an element of Black Moon Lilith here, and she's playing a part in here, as we journey. So it's, even though we can't see her in those quincunxy sort of aspects, she's there. She's there, playing the part, and she's still present in this whole situation of change making. Uranus and Taurus, changing this fixed earth element of, you know, what is it that we need to rattle up and shake up for change, for the actual earth herself. And there's always been talks of Uranus in Taurus bringing earthquakes and earth movements and things like that. So I believe that that's also been registered right across the world in different aspects, but I haven't personally been paying much attention to that, but it is something to note, I think.
We definitely felt the rumblings within. Well, I have felt the rumblings and shakings, whether or not it takes a physical form in our experience.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And sometimes I wake up feeling like the earth moving, but I don't know whether it's my imagination or my body or what's happening, but nothing feels stable. And actually, I had a conversation with my daughter, Livy, a few weeks ago, and we were talking about wanting to travel overseas. And I said, yeah, that'd be awesome. We should look at that. And let's maybe not do it over the next couple of years, you know, just because of all the changes, just from, you know, I have 4 kids and it's a lot to even just contemplate going overseas. And said, you know, there's a bit of an instability at the moment. And she goes, yeah, I'm really feeling that unstable earth aspect. And I'm like, wow, you're feeling it. You're 15 and you can articulate that. So she's a Pisces full moon. So she feels it all. So it's really interesting to have that reflected back. That there's something here definitely with that Uranus coming to an end in Taurus. The next time Uranus stations retrograde, which will be this time next year, it will be stationing retrograde in Gemini. So this is like the last full retrograde aspect that Uranus is going to make in Taurus for the next 84 years. So it's just something about this mastery point too, in this final decan of Taurus, that Uranus is, you know, showing us what actually really has this Taurus Uranus transit been all about, I think, as well.
And for anyone with, say, Chiron in that final decan of Taurus, which is, you know, people born in the early 80s, just once again really getting that work out, this change agent coming and kind of shaking up a really tender part of self. I find it helpful to be mindful, okay, that's coming down the pipe, and to be anticipating one sacred wound perhaps coming up again, or how do I want to be with that stuff this time? How was it the first time Uranus passed by? Because now it's going to be passing back. And then there's going to be that final pass as Uranus moves forward and out into Gemini. I'm partly saying that because I have a dear friend who has Chiron at 27 degrees Taurus, and it's been a you know, one of those just uncomfortable, wow, this is really happening, can't believe it kind of spaces. Just heads up and lots of love to you folk with Chiron or any tender point in those late degrees of Taurus, because it really hasn't been a comfortable journey with Uranus, but always the changes happening in service to opening up new possibilities and new freedoms, new independence, new claiming of self.
Absolutely. And those people who are having their Chiron activated by this Uranus at these later degrees of Taurus, are they the same people who are in the middle of their Uranus opposition as well?
For me, I'm right in the middle of my Uranus opposition, and for me, Chiron was a bit earlier.
Yeah.
So I think it's like this Chiron workout is just preceding the Uranus opposition. So those people born in, you know, be like 1981, 82, 83 will be having this soul workout, you could say, or invitation to work with your ancestral vulnerabilities and traumas that are coming down the family line, because these things are always bigger than just us in this lifetime, especially where Chiron is being woven in. Working with that stuff, you can know and rest in the fact that any work that you do now to process that, alchemize that, but be more loving and integrated with that will serve you well during your Uranus opposition, which seems at the moment to be more like age 44. Well, for me, I'm 44 and going through it, as opposed to the cliche of Uranus opposition is age 42.
Yes. Yeah, I had mine at 44 as well, and just a couple of years out of it. So yeah, interesting when you look at these bigger life transits and these bigger life cycle transits and relating to the rites of passage work as well. I find that really fascinating that, you know, that Uranus opposition starts to trigger in that perimenopause for women, you know, that middle age sort of elements.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so fascinating. And it's something that I'd love to dive into more. About the planetary transits and rites of passage. I think that's a really cool work. But yeah, so shout out to the Uranus and Chiron people out there. We send you love, I think. Send you love. Yeah. Yeah. And so what else has happened in the lead up to this new moon, which was also, so not only we had a Uranus station retrograde on the 2nd of September, we also had Pluto regressing back into Capricorn for its final showdown, final hurrah in Capricorn that started back in 2008, 2009. So if you cast your mind back to 15 years ago, when that first, you know, Pluto first ingressed into Capricorn, have a look where Capricorn sits in your chart. That area has been through a big transformation, never to be the same again. But here we are as Pluto is moving back into that 29-degree of Capricorn moment, but only for a couple of months. So it regresses back here in stations retrograde sort of mid to late October, and then it moves out once and for all, for our lifetime anyway, on the 20th of November. Yes, it's a big, this is it, people. Like whatever that Pluto and Capricorn transit has been for you, this is the final piece, the final mastery piece, and to tie up loose ends and to just finish it up. It's time to finish whatever that was up. So, you know, for example, if it was in your 7th house and, you know, like myself and many other Cancerian rising people out there who are coming back to have this massive review of relationship, you know, and to tie whatever that was, whether it was a transformation and growing deeper into relationship, or it was realizing maybe the relationship that you're in wasn't right for you, but it gave you a lot of lessons. Now it's time to finish it up, whatever that was. I'm ready for the next Pluto going back into Aquarius, which will stay here for another 20 years. But this is, and I just want to come back to that. Final homework is due of Pluto in Capricorn on the 20th of November.
Yeah, we've been having this back and forwards for a while now, since, is it 2023? Like these little glimpses of the future, or tastes of that Aquarian life, or possibilities, even tastes of the underworld of that. And so what do we need to do to prepare for that? But yeah, obviously that huge workout through our Capricorn house. And yeah, really, I guess it was partly listening to your experience and such a clear ending of things, and needing to kind of tie up the pieces and tie up the paperwork and get that done to clear the decks. I feel like we've bobbed up multiple times for glimpses of the future, and now here we're coming back to deal with, or to set in place, you know, the things, the truths, the clarities that have been, if you like, hard won. And yeah, I'm sounding a little bit airy there. I could say for me, just to ground it a little, I have Capricorn on the 10th house, so it's another angular house. It's been a very slow but also quite significant time of deconstructing for me what society means. It kind of spans like from 2008. Basically, I was having my last child. It spans birthing and a deconstruction of what birth looks like in our culture. It spans my children not going to school and us homeschooling for many years, and a kind of deconstruction of what I thought the education system was. The pandemic was in there. There was some deconstructions of some basic understandings we had about people, particularly in our bodies, Capricorn, Earth star. So just different facets of my understanding or conditioning about society or my status. Also moved house in there, which was quite, just a huge shift. Now all of that, here I sit with it and like, what are the bits that I need to make sure I've done, or need to make sure I've got the plans in place so that I'm ready for the new way of being that I really want to live. If I saw how I didn't want to live, or if I saw some gaps and holes in society, well, hey, Pluto's moving on to the house of collaborative visioning. How do I need to structure myself, and who am I calling in? And that's what I mean about the glimpses of the future, but also needing to make sure I don't forget the stuff that I saw, and that I do action it. And yes, I always find the deadline helpful. They're a little bit stressful, but they're also helpful. So yes, 19th, 20th of November, something's done there.
Yep.
The paperwork hopefully is done, what needs to get done by the 19th of November, so that you, as it's not even as a global citizen, it's bigger than that, as that galactic citizen that you reference, can move forward into that Aquarian tone. What do you need to do? You'll know. No one else can tell you, but yeah, the homework is due.
Homework is due then. And I think this final, like 29 degrees of Capricorn, 29 degrees anywhere, that point, especially a cardinal point, I just feel like summing up the final lessons. And I think what you've just spoken to beautifully, Grace, about what is it that you learned? What can you summarize in a couple of sentences what Pluto and Capricorn taught you, and what were the lessons? And also, how do you end well? Like, how do you end with grace and love and reverence of that Pluto deconstructing, whatever was sitting in Capricorn for you that needed transformation, and just thanking it because Pluto transits can be rough. They're it's the underworld, it's Hades, it's going down to the depths, and either discovering the deep riches. Well, it will be deep riches, but it might not look like deep riches at the time. It might look really messy and really dank and yuck and awful, and bones underneath the carpet or whatever. You can't hide them forever. And this is what that 29 degrees, I think, here is going, well, what is it that you were trying to hide that now needs to either come out, or you've done that work already in preparation for this final moment to say thank you for that lesson. I
love what you're saying there, and I don't think there'll be any surprises really, because we've been journeying this content a lot already, these points of the zodiac. But I love what you're saying, to consciously finish or say goodbye. We know that it's so important, it's so countercultural in life to do the finishing well, not just be racing on to the new. So listening to the subtleties of what wants to be wound up, even what fears, what expectations, what structures have been mostly dissolved, and you could just do some final ceremony of letting go. Or riffing again on that, if you had Capricorn on the 10th house, how has your status changed? Or maybe you've been disillusioned about status, marriage, job land, vocation. Potentially a whole bunch of that has dissolved. Is there just some tiny little bit of laying it to rest that resonates or calls to you? I love what you're bringing there.
And I love that what you just said about dissolving too, because look, we've got this sextile energy between Neptune, right, also that 29 degree mark here in Pisces, which is the final degree of the whole zodiac, which is a dissolving, it's complete dissolving, but it's this sextile energy is like, but there's something new forming, but it's not here yet, but it's like that sort of shoot that's coming up is like, ooh, but what needs to be cleared before that can really grow into its fullness, but something needs to be dissolved and let go of before that can happen. Like it's like you can't, it's just been dissolved anyway, whether you're ready or not. So choose to, come a conscious way. And, I think, how do you end well? So you're not carrying, it going into something new when you're not really dissolved the last thing. It's like, it feels really scratchy to me, but but it will be what it will be for, but I think being conscious about where Capricorn is in your chart, reviewing what has happened since 2008. And if you've got planets or points in Capricorn or making aspects, to just go back and maybe look at when that happened, and that were probably more significant times, and just having this review process of what was Pluto in Capricorn for you all about, and what do you need to do now to finally just say thank you and send it on its way.
I'm resonating so much with that word review. Just the power of naming the lesson, like what you said before. What did you learn from Pluto traveling through Capricorn? I mean, I have a very reflective heart. I have so many planets in retrograde. The reflection always feels so important. So it's not a surprise that I'm resonating. But yes, I've got a vision of sitting down, just writing down what were the main themes, what did I learn, and just really anchoring that. That's going to be really useful going forward.
Yeah. And now that all those outer planets are to now retrograde as well. So it's really calling, because you got what now? Uranus retrograde, Chiron's also retrograde, Neptune's retrograde, Saturn's retrograde, and into early October, Jupiter is going to go retrograde too. We're just off the back of a Mercury retrograde, and we'll talk more about Mars is going to go into Cancer, where it's going to stay here retrograding, between Leo and Cancer, but mostly Cancer until April next year. Like, there's a lot calling for us to come back and just like really look at what has been, and to let go of that and to clear something new. Because as we've spoken time and time again on this podcast, that next year, the next couple of years, it's all new. So this is the opportunity now. It's like, organize your stuff now, do your review, do your letting go, gather your lessons, your bundle of lessons, so you don't have to come back to those lessons now, because come next year and the year after, 2026, 2027, there's no coming back from that to look at that. Because we'll be in something completely different. But if we haven't consciously looked at the lessons, it's going to be harder to come back and look at them. You just be in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, really hearing you on the change of scene, the change of pace. It's always harder to reflect and anchor and get perspective when the pace is faster. And we know that the pace is going to pick up in a year or two, as there's so much movement into it, more the yang parts of the zodiac. So another good reminder.
And so that whole thing, changes here now, ready or not. Like, this is a part of the change, but it's the beginning of the change. It's the part of the change that is reviewing of the changes that have happened and taking the lessons. Like it's just, I think this is what September's about. Gathering your lessons in your little bundle and say, right, this is not going to happen again. What do I need to do to not have this happen again? Because if it's not consciously seen that way, you'll be in it again, but it's going to be harder to change because it's all new, if that makes sense.
I'm hearing it like collating the vision. If you got some
Yes.
pieces of the vision, partly through your disillusionment, Pluto style, you write a list, like collate what you saw, collate the truths that you gathered, because they're really going to inform, or they are already what life is inviting you to action. And that action may well come a bit faster, maybe easier, but certainly faster in the next few years. Yeah, I like that word, collation.
Collation. It's such a Virgo word too.
Ah,
I love it.
yeah, let's get analytical here, people.
We're getting down our list of things and we're writing it down. Right. What are your lessons that you've learned and what don't you want to take in the future? And what do you want to take into the future? Like this is wow.
In fact, people could submit it as comments. If you want some homework, send in your collation of your vision, what Pluto has revealed to you, and how that informs the coming.
I love that.
Decades even.
There you go. The Virgo teachers have set the homework.
Yeah, we've set some homework. You thought you were just listening here? No, that's not how this shit works.
Welcome to the Virgo School of Pluto. Okay.
Priestesses do work. So
do work. We're working because that's what Pluto is. I mean, Capricorn is. We're working. It's one of the things I have so many Capricorn sun people in my life, and I really appreciate them. They're a really good reflection, like really close, like my mum and my kid's dad, and one of my besties. Like it's just like a lot of Capricorn sons, and Becky also, and it's so good. And I really have come to appreciate this Pluto in Capricorn, of like where Capricorn falls in my chart. As I said, it's in my 7th house, and I'm so committed to the work of in relationship. It's just like, wow, that's your son. I really appreciate that. Like that, this is one of the lessons that Pluto has taught me about Capricorn. It's like, wow, that's really incredible how much stamina and commitment to the thing. It's really awe-inspiring. Great. Thank you, Capricorn. It's been a really interesting, good time. Lessons. I want to say good time. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next chart we are going to share will be the Mercury and Sun. I mean, was it Mercury and Uranus square? So this is the final square out of 3. And I'm just bringing it up. So this is happening tomorrow here as we speak. So on the 7th, okay, there we go, bring it up. So this is happening at 2:20 p.m. on the Saturday, the 7th of September. And this is the final square of 3. This is happening in Leo at 27 degrees. So where are we here? Leo here, 27 degrees and 14 minutes. And you can see here this exact square, this 90-degree angle that is a point of tension. But, it's like 2 angles coming together in a pressurized situation. But from that, when it breaks, it's like there's something new that is being formed. So the first one was on the 21st of July, which is when that massive internet outage happened. So Mercury, like communications and technology, internet and things like that, and how things move, squaring with that tension of Uranus, which is sudden changes, and especially in Taurus, is in a fixed sign. Both being fixed signs of Leo and Taurus, of this pressure, which is not comfortable because there's a fixicity here that there's just not wanting to move or budge. But Uranus is here making it move, which is just like, it feels quite, feels unstable for those fixed energies. The next one happened on the 18th of August, which was when Mercury was in retrograde. And this is the final one. So it'll be really interesting to see now that Mercury is going direct, whether we're going to have a revisit of, you know, whatever consequences that happened back in the 21st of July will come out more as to maybe the details of what that was. I don't know. Who knows? What was your experience of the Mercury square Uranus movement?
I didn't have anything as clear as like your computer journey or some of that tech piece. And as I'm listening to you speak, I'm reminded, like, I live with this because I have an Aquarian sun, a Taurus moon. I live with this square, a little bit stuckness, and then the busting open. But really often just staying with the pressure. I would say the square feels like a pressure or significant kind of self-questioning, these different parts of me having different perspectives. So it perhaps feels so native to me that it didn't register too much. But how I maybe would more experience it or see it would be to go back to the conjunction, which I'm assuming was April, perhaps May, but probably April.
April, I think,
between Mercury and Uranus, in the midst of so much stuff that was happening. And I know that for all of us, you know, we were all immersed in whatever life was asking of us at that time. And for me, that was being overseas, yes, serving at Jane's workshops, but also going and doing personal ceremony. And so here I feel now, I did 3 significant ancestral clearings. And here, if you like, at a, I'm just musing there, pausing on, it was a kind of communication with the universe, Mercury, and creating change, Uranus, was playing with the archetypes there. But here at what would be a springtime point or a spring equinox point, this first waxing square, I'm living some of the fruits of that. I'm living a settling of that. And also I take it all with a grain of salt because this is a fairly fast, this is what a mostly 1 year cycle that Mercury's doing. It's going to come back to Uranus in roughly 9 months' time-ish, a bit less. So there'll be a chance to keep on tuning into this conversation. And the volume on it, therefore, is a bit less than if this were 2 of the much slower moving planets. But I love that you had a clearer lived experience of it. It's awesome.
It was interesting. So it'd be great that our next podcast of this going from October's review, I'll have my new computer, which will be the final result of this Mercury square Uranus.
Which you called a total upgrade.
It was an upgrade. Well, that's right. It was a complete upgrade. So it was better than what it was before. I was already thinking about getting a new computer. It just happened way suddenly, like more suddenly or earlier than I expected by far. And I wasn't quite ready for it. But then things just sort of fell into place when I just had to change my perspective, which was that Mercury retrograde. And now it's direct. It's like showing up better than I thought before and ready for something new for the future. Like I feel like now I'm well equipped to use the technology, the new technology that I'm getting with the new computer to go forward to bigger and greater things. So it's really interesting. So complete upgrade of that and getting ready for, you know, being in my second house for, you know, looking at how I earn money from that computer, like, for example. So it's really interesting and fascinating from a personal point of view, just seeing how that's worked in such a big way. And, you know, to get to that point, Mercury I have Jupiter in Leo too. So it's like this expansion that had to be reviewed. It didn't quite, the retrograde didn't hit it, but it had to cross it first on its way. So, it's really fascinating to have that such a tangible experience of this square to come up in this way. And I can't quite remember having this square in such a in your face type of way before. So I'm not too sure. I have to go back and have a look at my chart as to why that is happened that way, or whether it's what significant points it was triggering. But yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, and even if even if the listeners couldn't quite remember what was going on the 21st of July and early August, or whenever these 3 points are happening, or can't quite land it, we could all just kind of take what you're saying, which is we've all received a total upgrade, particularly in regards to the Leo Taurus parts of our chart. If you know your chart, could be worthwhile just sitting with that. How has life been upgraded, i.e. quite changed and for the better since April?
Yeah. Fascinating.
It's more homework, people. It's more homework.
More homework. Didn't expect that, did you? Being given homework.
Well, this is how I do astrology. It's all very well to like listen to other people speak about it, but it really comes alive when you connect it to your own lived experience. It's where I just start getting so excited. Hence, the homework is really a way of saying, how about you do the most exciting bit, which is see how these cosmic patterns are playing out in your life, rolling through you. You're totally connected to this bigger picture, and the bigger picture is real, we're dancing with it. It's really the best part of astrology. So I'm calling it homework as a joke, but really it's the best part.
Absolutely. It really hones in on the embodiment of your chart. And when you can see it in a lived experience, it lands so deeply within your soul, embodies being here, just like, wow, when you really see it playing out in your life, in your real, tangible, everyday lived experience, you just get this greater sense of the aura of the whole cosmos, of just like, wow,
Yes, it opens us up to awe.
Yes. It does.
Yes.
It really does, because you just go, wow.
Which is why we end up like ecstatic and full of oxytocin on these calls.
Exactly, because we're just like, wow, can you feel that? Because you're really taking your tiny human body and lived experience in this human earth format and just going, actually, look at the biggest cycles that are playing, but because it's so embodied, that you can really feel it, like you can really, it comes down to your bones, even like that, or how the bones, we're made of stardust, like you can feel the stardust being activated because it's been a lived experience in your body. So cool. I just love it. I love it. The next day, on Sunday the 8th, we have the sun opposite Saturn, which is happening at 16 degrees, Saturn in retrograde in that Virgo and Pisces axes here. You can just see it starting to form in this chart. It's a really dodgy line. Saturn, the boundary making, but also it feels like the elder, but he's in retrograde and the sun's sort of illuminating whatever Saturn's sort of working through in Pisces. What would your take would be with the Saturn and Sun opposition?
Oppositions can represent or can point to the need to make a decision about something. So there may be a kind of call to take action, or something that's just, right there in your face that you can't deny anymore.
Yeah.
And I just continue to find it so fascinating having Saturn in such a structured, formed archetype, so much about forming, building. Think of a castle wall or boundaries, the paperwork to build something like with city council or something. But in Pisces, such a dissolving, I really feel like Saturn moving through Pisces keeps on asking us what's really important, people. And it isn't the physical manifestations of stuff. It's the spiritual, it's the emotional connections between us, it's love. But then I keep feeling like Saturn invites me into love.
Yeah.
And to create structures in service to that agenda. But I have Pisces in the 12th house, so it is a very cosmic, formless space in that way. So kind of tune or massage that musing to where Pisces is in your chart, but I would expect an amplification or a continuation of the new moon themes that we just had, new moon in Virgo. Yeah, just to keep listening out for that. And so I'm back to the shortness of life. And if life is short, well, how do I want to be spending my time? Saturn would say your time is one of your most important things. The cycles tell us that it doesn't last forever. The death and dissolution is absolutely guaranteed. Pluto is also telling us that very strongly.
Permanent.
So what's important? What do you need to do now? Yeah, quite a clarifying aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. That full illumination, that sun that's there, the biggest body, in our system here, just fully shining on this Saturn. That it's really interesting. I learned last month that from the Earth's point of view, Saturn's rings are disappearing. Like you can't see them, and they will fully disappear from an Earth's perspective through a telescope. At the start of next year. So there's a dissolving here. And apparently this happens every time that Saturn goes in Pisces, that the rings disappear because of the angles and the axes that Saturn takes whenever it's in this part of the sky. So it's really fascinating to me that here is, the Lord of time with the boundaries and things, that solidness, but in Pisces, it's dissolving. Like it literally cannot see the rings of Saturn, that the very boundaries that are made out of. Like everything is dissolving, and I tend to think that also that time is dissolving. Like what is time? Is a man-made construct. So what is time if we take that out and look at multiple different timelines running simultaneously together? But here with the sun shining on that, it's just like bringing this focus on what even is that structure that we thought was real, that's no longer really here, because there's a dissolving and dissolution. And fucking you see it everywhere. There's a dissolution happening all over the place. Like the structures are falling. And I love how it's all connected also with that Pluto moving back into Capricorn to review the structures, which is a Saturn ruled sign. So there's something here about the just deconstructing and the dissolving of actual structures, and just really questioning, well, what is real and what is not. We don't really, what it's getting harder and harder to tell. Like you look at the media, like who knows these days, like what you're being heard is real or whatever, what you're seeing. Like it's hard to make that call as to what is real these days. And I think that's going to continue, and especially with that Neptune continuing to be in these final degrees of Pisces, which is the dissolving of everything. That's really interesting. And maybe so, as we're moving into that 8th, on that Sunday into Monday and Tuesday, that could be felt, that sort of, again, that feeling that nothing's stable and nothing's really real, but it's right in our faces all of a sudden.
Yeah, I have the little voice reminding me that Black Moon Lilith is in the mix. Like she's still, so our wild sovereign wholeness is at play and at stake here, just kind of ongoing throughout September. But yeah, I was hearing what you're saying and connecting it to your Mercury retrograde questioning or unpacking about what is money, what is money, what is time, what are these concepts and unconscious beliefs that we've constructed together that we are now deconstructing, and the cosmos mirrors back, the lessening of Saturn's rings, the lessening of these constraints, perhaps. And it can feel so destabilizing, but also can feel like a real opening up. And hence, I think having the sun in Virgo just reminding us to keep on anchoring it all here in our body, or only going into that questioning as much as we can genuinely hold in our body. We don't have to give ourselves a mind fuck for no reason.
Yeah.
bite off only 5% of the mind fuck if you want, and have fun with that, or alchemize that much, and don't worry about all the rest of whatever the conspiracy theories or all the rabbit holes you could go down. Just
because there's potentials to go down rabbit holes here, I think. You get lost with that. It's I think what's going to help actually, though, by the Monday on the 9th of September, Mercury's going to move into Virgo. So it will ingress in here, which will bring more of that earth element to anchor ourselves back in and just go, wow, that was weird. Let's come back to our earthly bodies, physical bodies, and start to really tune into that body conversations that may be needed after that opposition of the Sun and Saturn. And it just feels like
maybe
coming back to earth a little bit.
Getting so cosmic with it, perhaps, or feeling the pressure of that in the opposition. Then Mercury comes back in, remembering Mercury is coming back into their home turf, so fully resourced. And I'm getting a vision of just, okay, yes, there's all that big dissolution, or I still haven't worked out what the heck money is and how to make it or anything like that. But what I'm feeling called to is making this sourdough, or, bringing some of that mercurial dexterousness and like the wisdom in our hands, putting our hands and our bodies to work to create and craft the life that we want. That's an incredible anchoring. That's what I was receiving as you were talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling that as well. And I love when we go through charts like this, we get the embodiment of the feelings of the things, like, oh, okay, come back into our bodies. And and it's like, maybe after all that, I just need to sit down with a cup of tea and just sit in the sun for a bit while it's still in Virgo right there, that co-house, and just feel the sun on my skin, and feel the breeze, how it moves, and being that mutable earth, but just connecting back into the actual physical your earthly body here, to say, okay, no, I'm here, and what do I need to do to look after this human vessel of earthly vessel that we're in, whether go and get a massage, or feeling yourself here. And I'm just thinking, with also all this, the Venus in its home sign in Libra, it's like, maybe that getting a massage was having someone else there to nurture and be in service to the body, to support you in that.
And whatever house you have Virgo on will also speak to, well, where does some of that grounding energy want to play out?
I love it. And look, sun and the moon is about to go into Scorpio here, which is really interesting because Venus is going to go through Scorpio at the end of the month too. I just love when you get these little signs as things coming in. By this time, Mars is moved into Cancer as well. Did we speak about that back at the 5th? No. Okay. Yeah. So Mars, so this happened on the 5th. So we're a bit jumping all over the place, but I just want to talk about this Mars ingress into Cancer, which is really important because it will stay here until the 18th of April, 2025. So this will be a good time to pay attention to how Mars is starting to influence the Cancer areas of your chart. You might be getting a little hints. Mars does not move well in Cancer. It's in its detriment. It's in its fall. It's not really, doesn't move very well. Mars likes to move fast. It likes action. It likes, it's got that glyph of the arrow coming out, like you can see it wanting to move. But then this cardinal water sign that's on the edge, crabs move sideways. Mars wants to move forward and fast. So it's like it feels sort of awkward, uncomfortable, even frustrating. And with a frustrated Mars that can't move very well, it might all of a sudden sort of like, I'm just thinking of the pincers of a crab, just like all of a sudden, protecting and looking after whatever, its home or its body, and just going, no, no, no. But having it lash out suddenly without, why it sort of held everything in, holding everything, and all of a sudden it just can't hold anymore. It just sort of bursts out, maybe in an unhealthy way. So just, pay attention to how Mars is traveling through the Cancer area of your chart. It'd be something to pay attention to because it stays here for such a long time. It's like a 6-month transit. It's huge.
Yeah, a long time. And you could also muse on, for one thing, listening to you, I love the directional nature of it, and it really captures some of that frustration that this dynamic archetype moving through a more careful, traditional, protective sign can feel. The image I was getting was of think of a classic warrior in all their metal armor being thrust underwater, or at least having to live at the beach, which is, here I'm playing with the archetypes, and all their weapons are going rusty, and it's all not, the tent can't get put up in the sand, it's all a little bit unstable, and nothing's it's hard even to run fast on the sand when the ground is moving underneath your feet. And so here again, the archetypes, the play of the archetypes are just coming a bit more alive for me. But I was going to say that you could also think about where Mars is in your chart, because that will give you a sense of what phase is this Mars in. So for me, Mars is coming to Mars, I guess I have Mars in Virgo. So Mars has slowly been coming through the zodiac, now has gone about 3/4 of the way around. Mars takes roughly 2 years to go through the chart. And now here's this incredible pause point in Cancer for 8 months, I think it was. And so that's something in itself. But for me, I can add a layer of meaning by knowing that Mars is in a harvest phase of its cycle for me personally. And I very consciously started that Mars cycle in August last year. So if you have Mars in Virgo, then if anyone does, it was roughly a year ago that was happening. August. So it's another layer of meaning, and I feel like, okay, I'm being invited to sit in the harvest of whatever I was seeding there, which was quite strongly relational and marriage connected. Okay, there's a harvest here. My Mars self has been experimenting with different things. My partner and I have literally been doing explorations each week, just whatever we want to explore together, let's do it. And we've been inviting each other week by week into these explorations with some gaps. And then here's Mars in this harvest phase. For me, Cancer on the 4th house of home. It feels like a settling in me, but it'll be interesting to see if there's some of that, or how some of that Mars in Cancer discomfort comes up, and what I feel called to take action on Mars style, given all that I've learned in the last year and a bit. So I'm just adding that in as another layer of meaning. For example, if your Mars was in Capricorn, well, it's been roughly 6 or 7 months, I think. No, sorry, a bit longer, more closer to a year. But you could look back to when was Mars hovering over where Mars is in your natal chart as a kind of functioning as a beginning point. And then where is Mars now? I find using that phasal information just quite helpful. It kind of gives context to some of these ever ongoing changes through the zodiac. Helps me land another layer of meaning.
I love that so much. I'm just reflecting as you're speaking as to my Mars. And so my Mars for me is in Sagittarius. So I've just come in an opposition of my Mars opposition. And what's happened, I've had a shoulder injury over that Mars opposition, that now that Mars is moving into, which was also the 6th house, Sagittarius is in my 6th house, and now that it's moving into my 1st house, I'm needing to repair and recover from it, whatever that injury was. But to do that, I'm needing to do more weights, and I feel like the more called to do some sculpturing of my physical appearance, which is the 1st house. So it's really interesting to have that reflection as a harvest, that that actual out of pure injury of a Mars opposition, which is what Mars can bring, is injury of moving too fast or whatever, because that's exactly what happened. Mars in Gemini was very sort of quick moving and too quick for my hypermobility on my shoulder, and overdid it, which is Mars in Gemini, right? It was just moving so fast that it overdid it. And but now that it's moving into Cancer, I've got to slow down, come back into actually my body and my physical appearance of how do I now move and strengthen and sculpt, like strengthening and sculpture my body and my physical appearance as that Mars is moving in through my 1st house. But it has to be done slowly, because if I move it too fast, I will re-injure it. So it's really interesting to have that reflection of what that is. Yeah, thank you for bringing that to the table. That's great. Beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like you have an extended period of time to do that.
Yeah, I do. Until April next year, actually. Yay.
Yeah.
Yes, so good. In this year, so Mercury ingress into Virgo, and then we're starting to move into the full moon, which is actually it's a start where it's an eclipse. So it's the Pisces full moon. Let me bring up the chart for that. Pisces full moon eclipse. Okay. And bringing up the chart there. So Pisces full moon eclipse happening at 25 degrees and 40 minutes. Here you can see it in Pisces. Pisces is that mutable water dissolving, but it's an eclipse because it's close to the nodal point, this north node here, and the sun that's where the south node is here. So it's an eclipse point. It's happening on the 18th of September at 12:34 in the afternoon. So this is for us, so you can see here, Australian Eastern Standard Time, the sun is directly above us. So you can see it's happening for us in full daylight, which is interesting. This dissolving point, again, we're coming back to this dissolving of Pisces, but this is a new eclipse point. This is a new axis that's going to last right through next year, throughout all these changes. And at some point that the nodes are going to be moving and into Pisces, over Neptune and also Saturn. And by the time that this eclipse nodal axis is completed, we're going to have these big changes. Neptune will be, going into Aries. Saturn will be going into Aries. Uranus will be going into Gemini. Pluto will be going to Aquarius. So this is a start of a very powerful time period that's going to see us through to all these outer planets moving into the very early degrees of the next signs. So yeah, full illumination of what this could be, but it's an eclipse. So it's like this energy of grand endings and grand beginnings. Like it's something that's hidden, that's coming out, that's disappearing and coming in. But especially in Pisces, which is mutable water, Like, what is even that? It's like a mist. It's like, you can't see it. It's sort of dissolving. It's, it's moving, it's shaking, it's going into the sky, and it's coming down into sort of, potential rain. Like, who knows what that Pisces mutable water is, and how it's moving into, it's falling in between Neptune and Saturn here, which are the big sort of players in this Pisces build up.
Yeah, it for sure is like being in a deep conversation with some of that dissolution, shortness of life. What are your real priorities? What do you think is real and true about these constructions that we've created of time and money and whatever else? Some of that content that we've already been talking about. Then here's this upcoming full moon as, the volume on some of that stuff being turned up. So we hardly need to I guess we'll look at, I'm not sure that it will be new content. I think it will be familiar to us. We've been traveling with some of this stuff for a while, but yeah, the volume up. And I find it fascinating that the nodes are not in the same sign. So and when two signs are side by side in traditional astrology anyway, it means it's difficult for them to talk. It's like you're sitting at a big long buffet, and in some ways whispering to the person beside you is easier, especially if there's a lot of noise in the room. But you really, like, to get full eye contact and have the full body to body, like really looking eye to eye, you really kind of have to contort yourself to look at the person next to you, in some ways, especially to go full body. So that's how I feel this is Aries and Pisces here. But so interesting that north node, if you like, our collective longing is rolling past that 0 Aries point where Saturn and Neptune are going to meet up. That point that's going to have just so much action in the next few years. So yeah, it does feel to me like this. I loved what you said at the very beginning, glimpses of the future, that potentially under this full moon, whatever kind of divination or scrying or however you listen to the universe, even just, through the wisdom of your own body, whatever practices you have to put your antenna out to listen for what's coming. Yeah. Kind of symbolically in the astrology, there's a significant opportunity to hear about some of those key events that are coming up, or if not so much the events, but the themes. What might that Aries point mean for you? What are you longing for in some of that Aries terrain under this full moon in Virgo Pisces? You might be able to hear it or catch a glimpse of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just going back to what we were saying before about that Sun opposite Saturn, I feel that might be the actual beginning of this eclipse. It's not this actually, it was more that Sun opposite Saturn that started to trigger those feelings of what is this sort of that dissolving and not really knowing, and that spaciness that could be here. But what happened after that with that Mercury moving into Virgo, and what we were saying about coming back into your body, coming back into your grounding, that by doing that in preparation will help navigate this full moon that might feel that contortion, feeling of unease, uncomfortable, because we can't quite see what's happening, but we can sense it in a way, because that Pisces full moon is a bodied sense, but they can't. It's really interesting, having
it's even hard to articulate.
It is hard to articulate. It's like English doesn't even come close to describing that. And I see that my daughter is a full moon Pisces born baby, and the way that she navigates the world is like she feels and picks up everything. Like she reads a room by just walking in it. Like, you know, and she picks it up in her very Piscean full moon sense of this full illumination. And it can be very overwhelming for her at times, like big crowds and things like that. It's just too much energy because she's feeling it. She can't quite articulate what she's feeling, but she's feeling, and she know that it feels good or she doesn't feel good, you know, because it's all the feeling sense, it's all the feeling body, and that watery, you know, that water bodied, and having that connected back to, you know, that mutable earth body of needing to maybe move it and shift your earth body to sort of maybe navigate your way through it by moving the earth body. That will help ground it in, but it doesn't feel like a comfortable full moon. But what we have in the lead into is just before this full moon on the 15th is the best aspect that we have in the whole month, which is the Jupiter trine Venus, which is like this expansion of Venus in her home sign, this beauty way, but this easeful movement between this beautiful Venus of relationship and aesthetics and art forms, and, you know, coming being expanded into Gemini. It's like, well, how do we, you know, it feels like communicating that and moving it and speaking, and, you know, like it's very social beingness here. And I think that medicine carrying into the full moon might give us a sense of maybe like an airy feeling. I think this is why we're having trouble articulating it, because we're coming off the back of that, but also we're coming off the back of that, we go straight into a Venus opposite Chiron, which happens just the next day. So it's just like, oh, this feels so good. Can we hold this? Can we hold this? Then the opposition comes to Chiron. It's like, well, you know, it feels like that thing is like, you get a sense of that really good thing or that good dreaming, but can you hold it with that Chiron? You know, Chiron showing you what stands in between you and that, you know, with that wounding that's coming up to be reviewed and looked at. So it's like, well, what do you need to be attended to in that wounding to be able to become like more stable as the healer of whatever that Jupiter and Venus brought in the lead up. So this is the lead up to the full moon.
Yeah, so it's that trine, very collaborative, airy, relational, collaborative aspect between Venus and Jupiter on the 15th, and then on the 17th. I'm just getting the frame, and then that opposition, like what's in the way. You can sometimes work with Chiron as a symbol of representing our separation addiction. Like we've been deeply conditioned to think of ourselves as separate and very individual, and Chiron can show up some of that thinking. So perhaps there's some of that desire for relationship, collaboration, working together to create something beautiful, Venus Jupiter style, and then running smack into maybe some fears or some old habits or some instincts. That would be an Aries, Chiron in Aries kind of approach. And then there's this full moon, very intuitive moment, perhaps a chance to receive some messages about some of that content, some of those kind of conflicting places within yourself. And I'm struck that Mercury is almost exactly opposite Saturn, and probably the next day, the day after the full moon, will be exactly opposite. So that sense of receiving the messages becomes even stronger for me in the symbolism of this chart. And I'm conscious that Mercury is a morning star, if I've understood that correctly, coming before the sun. As the sun comes up, Mercury just there before, and then the sun will come up after. And in the mythology, then Mercury as the messenger of the gods who could move between the worlds, which included the underworld, as the morning star, with his morning star face on, would bring the souls back up from the underworld, or had that capacity. So from the depths, or from some of that death, loss, decomposition or dissolution that Saturn is representing, bringing back some messages, some life, something important. That's what I'm feeling now in this conversation, looking at that chart with it, with its very particular lead up as you're talking about it.
Absolutely. And you know, all the while this Black Moon Lilith is still conjunct the South Node, and we've also have Mars square the nodes as well. So there's another conversation happening here with Mars in Cancer, what was we spoke about before, having this you know, caught in the nodal bendings of already Mars is uncomfortable and just going, oh, which way is up, which way is down. It feels like the crab's been flipped upside down and sort of going, oh, what what's fuck's going on? I don't understand. I can't move.
I love hearing you talk. Like you with your Cancer rising, you got an insight into the crab way that I just love. I'm so loving hearing you talk about it.
So funny. It's just how I move. No one makes sense of it because I'm always moving sideways. But yeah, this I feel like that crab's sort of and got that image of that so, you know, warrior with the steel armor suit on the sand but all of a sudden his tents is blown over and everything's gone, you know, it's in the middle of the night and everything's gone array, and it's just like, which way is up, which way is down. I can't quite make sense of all of this, what's happening. And it's, what a very Piscean full moon thing to experience as well. Like it just like can sense that. I'm not too sure what that is because it's such a felt sense, and you know, and especially in those later degrees of Pisces, things are really starting to just sort of dissolve and disappear. And an eclipse, it's all hidden, and you know, it feels so energy.
And as you're talking, I'm reminded, just because of that armor image, I'm reminded that sure, the warrior is concerned about their armor, and the crab is equally concerned about their armor, their protection. So Aries and Cancer share a real value around protection and the need to protect that, which is important. I mean, that's what the warrior is in service to.
Yes.
But I was just hearing that the crunch of Mars, but basically exactly square the nodes. They're almost exact. Yeah, 7.
Yes, 7.
Yeah. As perhaps, especially coming off the back of Venus opposite Chiron, the invitation to de-armor. Yes. Or perhaps running smack into how our armor and the ways we have historically tried to protect ourselves don't actually serve us anymore. Like that heavy armor running on the sand is actually absolutely not what you need in that environment. Probably need to strip some of that off and not come in with such a heavy, forceful attitude in that Cancer terrain. What happens if you could just go a bit softer? What happens if I could go a bit softer with myself first and foremost, and then of course with other people? I'm wondering if that's some of what that real crunch, like the exactness of the square, the nodes in that very intuitive full moon space might feel like it. I'm just big respect. Like there's a lot going on at that full moon, like the 2 days before and the 2 days after, given a lot of these aspects move fairly quickly, like Venus is going to move on very quickly. So will the moon. So it's a very transitory time we're talking about, but just if we have the capacity to be extra spacious in that Pisces, Cancerian, watery kind of way, just to be a bit gentler, I think that will serve us well, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that reflection of protection. And going back to my personal experience of what this Mars going into Cancer is, and my shoulder injury, one of the things that the reason why it's so tricky right now with this shoulders because I'm always trying to protect it, and so it's my movement through the world has changed because I'm always trying to protect this, whereas what I actually need to do is just open it and just do this gentle movement. So I love that reassurance of my actual embodied felt experience of that actually is what is needing to happen, is that soften that protection and actually, just move slower. So I don't need to do that protecting, which is degrading the muscles actually, because I'm not moving the way my muscles need to move. So yeah, that's evidence, I think, of what you've just spoken to.
Yeah, and if we have another eclipse season in 6 months' time, we'll still have Mars in Cancer. It'll be like a check-in.
Yes.
Like perhaps at this time it feels uncomfortable, or you can't quite pull off how you'd like to be, because like you were saying, this is the first time we're having this eclipse season in Aries, Libra, but it will come again, and we can apply the lessons from last time. It would just be interesting to look at that timing.
Yeah, so that will be late February, early March. I don't have the dates in front of me, but it will be around that 6 month time, pre the equinox again. Yeah, good check-in point. So yeah, if you're listening to this, just maybe put a note in your phone or your calendar to come back to that as to
this is more homework, people.
Oh yes, more homework. To put in your diary, what you're experiencing now under this Pisces full moon, and create a check-in when that Pisces new moon happens, which will be in another eclipse. As I said, I don't have the exact date. I might put it in the show notes when I find out, to have it put in a check-in for that around that time, to see what is showing up then in relation to what's happening now, because there'll be another piece of information that you will need a part of this.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I love that. And also, what's also been forming and it will continue to form too is this movement here, these sextiles between Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, and this trine that will continue to grow into next year. So there's something happening here with this apex, this point here with Neptune being in the middle of it, and this full moon landing here as well. So I feel like it's not just for here and now that's happening here. It's a greater unfolding happening, which we know already, but there's a piece here that you'll come back to later on. Yeah, and remembering Pisces, Aries, like it's the end of the zodiac and the beginning. It's like such a threshold. Like here, the whole chart is pointing to that deep spiritual threshold of death and life, the ending and the beginning, what those points represent. 29 Pisces and 0 Aries, from the womb to the first breath. More insights to come. Such a powerful point. And it's what a powerful point to be having an eclipse in. Like I think this is that, as I said, the change is here, and this is a part of the change, but this is just the first sort of scratching of maybe a sniffer of a scent of what this is.
Yeah, well, I think this is the first, and maybe that's not, maybe there's even earlier changes, probably that's true, but like this is the kind of phase of change that the intuitive, sensitive people will feel or pick up on.
Yeah.
Well, here we are, we're having a very intuitive, in some ways intangible conversation about it, and it will become much more concrete and external, lived in the real world. But again, in that sense of preparation, it's beautiful to tune in. Maybe that's a better language.
Yes,
we're just tuning into some of the changes while they remain a bit more esoteric, a bit more not yet fully here. Yeah, and there's a power in doing that, especially in terms of anchoring the change and guiding and holding space for those around you. And when I say guiding, I don't mean having all the answers. I mean being a grounded person for your community. It's really important work. And I think that's why we show up and invest in kind of listening out for these inklings. And I'm grateful to you. I wouldn't have picked up on these particular nuances by myself. Yeah, it's the power of this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been more alerted to be listening, particularly at this full moon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we're going back to what we spoke about right at the beginning about all these retrogrades and that Pluto going back in, is just like how, this is the point of dissolving and that very void space of something hasn't, ending something and something not quite beginning, but while we still can do the ending bit well, do it now. Like this month is all about that, because when we're looking down the barrel in 6 months' time, the landscape will have changed. But yeah, exactly what you said. So for those who are tuning in and noticing, like, they're going to be the people, because they already have tuned into the changes that are taking place, to be that Virgo holding, being able to move it, but with the changes that are happening opposite, but in the physical body, like that sense of grounding that earth element's going to bring and will be needed, but it's a mutable earth, so it's going to be able to move with the changes, but it's going to be that anchor that's going to be required when time is needed, when people who are not able to attune right now into, or not being aware of these nuances that we're sensing as intuitives, can be the grounding to be the leaders for what's coming next. I think, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And if we can write down what we're intuiting, or what message Mercury brought back from the underworld for us to hear, just playing. And if we write that down and put it in somewhere where we can find it again, it can be a real affirmation of our fine-tuned, intuition, sensing capacity, which is still something that isn't particularly encouraged in our society. We still need to do so much work to validate that. Oh, most of us do. I do. So I'm just inviting myself to do that, to write down whatever it is that I'm perceiving. I don't even have to work out if it's true or not, but I can come back to it in 6 months' time, in a year's time. Especially if you put it somewhere where you come back to your full moon prayers. There may well be a validation of the things you knew to be true now, or things you took action on now that really serve you in the coming years. And not just you, I mean your community, your family,
the collective.
The world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting hearing that, like, those lunar prayers are so important. And especially if you do them with a group, and just like for the Temple of New Eat study group, we do that every new moon, dark moon, full moon, and to go back and review those lunar prayers, those moon prayers, is something quite phenomenal to watch the progression and how one leads into another, and then to go, oh my God, it's like something happens in your life and you go back to look at those prayers and you can see the progression of how you got to where you are. And it's really, really cool, to do that. So I feel, if you're ever going to make a full moon prayer of what you want to see fully illuminated, this prayer, this would be a good one to do, I think.
And if you've done if that has been part of your practice, and it doesn't even have to have been that you wrote down a full moon prayer, but you journaled at the full moon. I mean, there's something that even a photo, that's something to come back to. To even come back to the previous water full moon, so full moon in Scorpio, full moon in Cancer, even that kind of exploration could be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love it.
Even further the water element.
Yes. Yes. And look at the trines going from Pluto and is it Uranus again? So this kite almost is forming again. That feels like that honing back down into that earth bodied sense of coming back to that.
Yeah, it's really the self, like you, represented by the sun and the moon, but really anchored somehow at that. It's not even societal level. That would be more like the Jupiter Saturn end of things, anchored by Pluto and Uranus, this bigger transpersonal work that's going on.
Yeah.
And the bigger picture of it, even though we don't quite understand, we don't have the full vision of it, but it's there's us and there's those two significant characters in the wings in a really positive relationship to that full moon axis. So yeah, again, I just get a feeling of it. It's very hard to articulate.
It's a Pisces full moon, mate. I think that's the whole point. It's like it's all a sense, it's a feeling sense. And as you're talking, I'm sensing too of, and I just keep coming back to the charts, what I've seen for the next couple of years. It's like there's a greater galactic cosmic cycle at play here that's way beyond us. You know, having, you know, that Uranus and Pluto in the wings, apexing down at that Neptune. It's just like, you know, that surrendering into the trust of the greater cycle, even if it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
In that push, you know, that Mercury and Saturn sort of but it's there's something unfolding that's beyond us that, you know, ultimately we don't really have any control over, but what we do have control is how we navigate it and how we tune into it and how we pay attention to the changes afoot, because they're happening anyway, ready or not. Like they're happening anyway, whether we're ready or not. So, you know, how best can you navigate that, knowing that change is afoot? Okay. Wow. All right. That's so big full moon coming up.
Very cosmic portal.
Very cosmic portal. I don't know where we just went then, but we went somewhere.
Yeah, we went somewhere else, mate. We
really did. All right. So the next chart we're going to have a look at is the equinox charts. So how wonderful, and if I can get it out, what is going on here? I don't know. My computer's just gone.
Always such a tech wrangle, talking and doing the
yeah, it's here it is. I just had to do it on picture. This is my son's computer. I just had a glimpse. I had the Temple of Nuit circle back a couple of months ago, and I was doing this swapping and changing and sharing a chart, and I tried to share a chart, and no kidding, it came up with there's nothing to see here. Like all I could see was the words nothing to see here, which was I think it was actually on that Mercury square Uranus chart.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was so funny. It actually said there's nothing to see here, but only I could see it. Everybody else could just see me just having this slight freak out as I can't get this bloody chart up. It was funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes, the universe has a sense of humor, doesn't it?
It does. And I think the more that you allow yourself to go out and play with the field, the sense of humor it's hilarious. It's so funny. Which brings at the essence of the cosmos is joy. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, equally true of the tarot as well.
Yes.
Strong sense of humor.
so funny. I love it. I just love it. And then that's what happens when you start really, playing with that cosmic energy in the field, and the humor of the sense of all the joy and joyous celebration comes out, and so clearly. It's like,
yes, and just the setups, like you just have to laugh about it, really.
what else can you do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is spring equinox here in the southern hemisphere. So spring equinox, or equinox, no matter where you are in the world, symbolizes the sun ingressing into Libra, which you can see down here. This is happening for us here in the southern hemisphere at where is it? 10:44, so in the evening PM. So you can see, so this is, if this is the western horizon, the sun has set, so the sun is below the horizon here in the southern hemisphere. It's spring equinox. It is the second of the 3 fertility festivals. First one was Imbolc back at the start of August. This is the second one. So this is that equal day, equal night, moving and growing into the sunlight. And then the third one will be at Beltane, which is the start of November, or end of October, start of November, which is high spring. And that's when the energies all come together and come in this beautiful sacred union. But here at the Libran equinox, the spring equinox for us, the Ostara, it's all about, the eggs and the bunnies and fertility. It's the buds really starting to open, and the bees are starting to move and gather their nectar, and there's signs of new fresh grass. It's something, there's energy rising up. It's the equivalent of that maiden going into menarche. She's coming out and she's starting to blossom into the world, but she's not quite that 21 Beltane beauty. She's just starting to peak out. That's that first quarter energy of rising up, but we can't fully see it yet, what is rising. So that's really interesting to see how this first, and again, coming back to that 0 degrees cardinal points, how sensitive they are, because as we just saw, this is making that opposition back to Neptune. It's making a very strong trine here to Pluto as well. This 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, which is Libra, Capricorn, Aries, and Cancer, are very sensitive points at the moment because of what is happening up here and what will be happening with Neptune and Saturn moving through and the North Node going over. So this is really, again, I think, taking note of what's arising, and especially for us in the southern hemisphere, because this is the fertility phase of the season, like the whole yearly cycle of the sun going around. This is like time to plant seeds and intentions and dreamings and all the things that you want to come into fruition. This is the time. And being that balance of equal day, equal night going into the light is like, what do you need to call in to bring balance into your life, into your sphere? Shall we have a look at the Mabon?
And the nodes there are going to help you listen to that. Yeah, I'm so happy to shift to Mabon, and while you're doing that, I'm struck by, now we add this equinox moment onto the back of all those transits we talked about: Venus trine Jupiter, Venus opposite Chiron, full moon, Mercury opposite Saturn, and then we roll into this balance moment, cosmic balance moment. It's really quite a lineup.
Yeah, it's let me bring up the Mabon. It's not going to fully fit on the screen, but we're going to roll with it anyway. Good on you. Okay, where is it? There. So this is your part of the world.
Yep. This is middle of North America. Yeah, so it's even a reflection of the balance moment, and it would be different in Europe, but you have the spring rising energy, but at night it's like incognito, and we have the surrendering, letting go, invitation of Mabon right at the dawning of the day. Like there's that opposites of energy that sometimes that equinox speaks to.
Isn't that interesting?
And almost like some of Mabon's invitation or autumn's invitation in general of letting go can be confronting, but it's like it comes with this sweet package of dawn and all the possibilities of it. And in the same way, the full possibilities of spring, planting the seeds, but coming in the whisper of midnight. Yeah, I'm struck by those opposites.
Me too. That's quite phenomenal. And this is not the same for, there's different times all around the world. It just happened to be this way for us, just for us, of course, for this, where Grace is and where I am down here in the Southern Hemisphere on the Australian Eastern Seaboard. So yeah, this is really interesting, that crossover between that rising of the dawn of the actual day. The ascendant is actually, that's the east, so the sun is rising up into the sky, and how close it is, it's just above the horizon there, actually at dawn, which for us here in the Southern Hemisphere, a spring equinox that's happening at the same time, it is the equivalent of dawn. It is the rising sun. So for us here at spring equinox, wherever you are, I love doing ritual with my children. We do the Easter hunt, Easter egg Ostara at spring equinox. I save the air, buy them. I buy them at Easter, which here is, March and April. I save them for 6 months. I hide them. And
that is so cool.
It's so cool. And it's like, because we've been doing it since the kids were young, like when they didn't know any better, and we just told them that was what was happening. And now it's just tradition. They expect it, which is great, because now they're all sort of moving into teenagehood. They still love doing it. But we do it at dawn, and we do cast the circle of the directions. We use that book's circle round. Oh, I've got it here. It's been like our family Bible and because it's Northern Hemisphere based, we've just switched the dates around. But this is our Bible for our family for Sabbath rituals. And we do it at dawn. So it's really interesting that here we're looking at this autumn equinox chart in the Northern Hemisphere, which is happening at the same time, but the sun is actually dawning. Love it.
Yeah, living the opposites.
Yeah,
living the balance, holding both those energies.
We are the above and below, within, without. That's what's happening right now. This is what we're doing, Grace. I love it. What?
And this year, our community, our small, collection of friends and kind of extended folk, getting together for some stuff during the afternoon, but a sunset feast of pies and fireside and whatever people want to bring, actually, and hopefully creating a beautiful table with our harvest of whatever outrageous pumpkins and just an altar to take in the beauty of what the earth has provided. So it doesn't look like that every year, but this year I felt called to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit more emphatic. Emphatic's the wrong word, but then it sometimes can be. Sometimes it feels a bit more quieter and internal. We'll just do it with just a few other people, but it feels important this year to open it up, make sure we do something, make sure we mark the moment, and make sure also that there's a spaciousness in there so all the teenage kids can join in or not. They're getting to that point. And also for all the adults to make find their way with that too. Like, because being in a priestess way just feels so right to me. I don't really, I'm not very good at small talk. And when these moments come, all I want to do is like be there intentionally. And at the same time, yeah, it's important to create spaces so that people can opt in, myself included, and that it doesn't become just like this ritual stuff that everyone has to do. Yeah, I guess that's just been one of the current conversations at the moment that this harvest moment is bringing up. So
good.
Here's to communities and families gathering and having embodied experiences that don't have to be connected up to the cosmic picture, but just to have those experiences together, to be having fun together is really important. It's a really powerful nourishment. Doesn't always feel possible to do. I think it's some of that tender chironic terrain for so many of us, the longing for those kind of spaces and the feeling of can't make it happen, or certainly that's alive in me. But when we can make it happen, and maybe with Jupiter and Venus in the mix here in that collaborative space, maybe it's a bit more possible this year, even though we're getting close to it. And maybe it's worth putting out a call to some friends and seeing what wants to happen. Yeah, it's powerful medicine to gather and create connection, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the equinox is symbolized by the sun moving into Libra, which is where you and I come together and we create something really special. And that I love that Venus is still just hanging in there at Libra at this time, which will help that bring that beauty, and just off the back of having that trying to Jupiter. Yeah, it just feels maybe perhaps more easeful for those coming together to happen compared to previous years. Yeah, but there's something here, that with that equinox symbolizing with the 0 degrees Libra mark, and also in the opposite flip side of the other equinox, which is for us, it's in March, which is symbolizing the sun moving into Aries, 0 degrees Aries. So again, I'm just, looking at that future perspective of, again, there's this 0 degree mark of the cardinals of this equinox point of 0 degrees Libra and 0 degrees Aries is another thing about, wow, this is really important part of what is building. And again, looking at the apex that, which is here for ages, right? Just honing and drawing the energy to it. Yet, again, look, the moon here is on, that 1 degree Gemini, which is so close to Uranus, which is making the trine back up here. So again, what we saw at that Pisces full moon eclipse, these energies of pulling, coming back down into that, into the body, into the earth, but so close into that. But how do we now come together in that perspective while still like knowing there's a bigger picture at play unfolding, that there's change afoot and whatever's, but that call to come together more so than this year because of that, and just sort of comparing notes or having this opportunity to go, well, how are you? You okay? And you okay? And just having a little check-in with the people around you, just seeing how everybody's faring. And
yes, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Just all those outer planets still involved, perhaps calling for, just be a bit more intentional with those relational spaces and the check-in, like you're saying. That's what I'm hearing from you. It feels true in me.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me too. And I feel like I have already been doing that with the people around me who know this work and who are also conscious of these transits. And we're all sort of checking in with each other at all these points, going, how are you? Are you okay? You're experiencing this. And when there's someone's sort of, sort of losing or being drained in their energy, just go and give them a call and say, hey, how you going? And just listening and holding space for that, because it just seems so important that we're all sort of in it together. And I think this is what this Libra and Equinox will sort of maybe hone in a little bit more, because everybody's feeling it. But maybe we need to come together now and experience it together, and just even a simple conversation of just, hey, how are you? Sort of thing. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be cosmic, but just a simple, how are you? Like, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, beyond the surface level.
That's it.
How are you?
How are you? How are you? Yes. Just after that, Venus moves into Scorpio, as you can see down here, and it makes a square to Pluto. So it's already making a square. It's already making a square to Pluto, as you can see here. There's this 90-degree angle. So again, even more reason to check in. Pluto, it's an underworld. That last final clean out in Capricorn might be a bit rough. It's like, we're busy tying loose ends up. That could be dramatic in ways. And I'm just thinking of my own stories and some people around me who have all of a sudden felt the call to really fast track some really big decisions and big things. And having this square with Venus here as well is that tension between, with that Venus but on the precipice of going into Scorpio, which is the depths, going back into a fixed sign, but here still feeling the senses of others, and how am I doing and how are you doing, and all this, it all starts to feel a bit, could possibly feel a bit wobbly, even more so to come together and check in with people, because of this tension that is here between that tying loose ends and that final sort of experience of Pluto, the underworld, transforming something forever and tying up something forever. And Libra here, just just trying to figure out how it does with everybody else and how it's doing with itself before it goes into that deeper retrospective Scorpio energies.
At least, once again, fully resourced in that Libran house.
Yes.
I guess, just emphasizing Libra's coming into that conversation with Pluto, Hades, death, fully resourced, and moving towards that archetype. Going to make a conjunction in 3 months-ish. So it's a more the empowered and end of things than feeling ripped down unwittingly.
Yeah, but it's the knowing, I think, is what we said, with that Pluto and its final degrees, doing this final thing. It's the knowing what needs to happen next, but it feels big because it's like the end. Do you know what I mean?
All the final attachments will be illuminated.
Yes.
You already have let go of so much, and the last little bits will be revealed, so that you can, do that final letting go and sign those papers or whatever it looks like for everyone. Have that conversation that you thought you didn't need to have, but damn, you actually have to have it. Or so many different ways it could play out.
I love that though. And so that happens on the same day, straight after the equinox. Venus squares Pluto, and then Venus ingresses into Scorpio like a few hours later. And in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, how did I describe it earlier? It was like seeing the beauty in the dankness and being able to be with those bigger, more heavier, underworldy experiences, but being able to find the beauty in it, or it's like seeing the beauty in the death and being able to go, it's a beautiful death sort of image. But for example, so I'm a Venus and Scorpio native. That's come into my home sign, coming up to my Venus return actually, which is nice. It's going to hold me well throughout this period of transit. But being grateful for all that Pluto brought in that movement of separation in relationship, but still being able to see the beauty of whatever was there, and just really being grateful for that, even though it was rough, but it was beautiful rough, because it cracked my heart open to expand. But yeah, so being able to see that beauty in that dankness, it can bring that distilling, or that what's the word? I'm seeing that Scorpio deep lake, and being able to float in the depths and just float in that, and just being able to be okay and see the beauty in that, if that makes sense. There's a stillness that comes with it, I think.
Yeah, I hear you. And from my Venus in Pisces perspective, I can still look at Venus going into Scorpionic terrain, so going into Mars's terrain, going to Mars's house. I don't mean house astrologically speaking, I mean Mars's territory, and still feel pained that some of that environment is so crunchy for her, or so intense, doesn't sing up some of Venus's kind of perhaps slower, more relaxed gifts. But I really hear that there's a beauty and certainly an eroticism in that intensity, and just in the being present and in the finding beauty. And I feel like Venus does her thing wherever she is, which is find the goodness. I can really hear that in you.
Yes.
I can hear but it comes with a price tag in Scorpio, or you need courage to show up as Venus in Scorpio. You need a lot of courage.
Yes.
So just from my heart to yours.
Yeah, thank you.
How you navigate that terrain.
Yeah, well, and it's that work that, like, for example, Inanna's journey, she is Venus, she is the star of Ishtar going down into the underworld, but she comes with it with such royalty and refine. She is the queen of heaven and earth already, and she goes down and takes off. But when she gets down into the underworld, it is a dissolution into the all and nothing, to be rebirthed into something new. And I think that we might see that as Venus journeys through Scorpio, that when it comes out the other side, it's not going to be the same Venus that entered from Libra. It's going to be different.
Yeah,
she's going to be transformed and moved and into something else, ready to shoot out in that Scorpio, Sagittarius sort of arrow back out to that greater sort of Jupiterian sort of out there in the cosmos. But she needs to go to those places first to be able to transform and to bring in the biggest perspective that she will get as she moves into Sagittarius later on next month, which will be interesting too, because when she moves into Sagittarius, which is moving into November, that's where Mercury will have its next retrograde as well. Oh, wow, a lot. Should we do one more last chart?
Sure.
How are we going there? We're just doing it in one hit. It's like, we're just doing it. Okay. The last chart, let's have a look again with still in sort of Libra energy. We're going to have a look. Our final chart is this Mercury, which is what we started off speaking about, going into Libra. And I'm just trying to find the chart. Okay. Don't think I have it. I might have to pause for a sec. Just
Yeah, okay.
Just excuse me for a sec. Okay, we're back. Not that it mattered for the viewers and the listeners, but we're back. We had a little break and we are back with the Mercury ingress into Libra chart. But just in the little break that we had, we were just speaking to this Venus here who is now moved into Scorpio. What we were saying about that? Mercury, I mean Venus.
You were saying how you felt as we were dialoguing it, you felt the heaviness of Venus coming into that, some of that plutonic content and some of the gravitas of that, some of the heaviness. And yeah, I was adding in there, I hope that as your Venus self, as my Venus self has moved through Libra, or is currently now moving through Libra, while she's moving through Libra, can just fill her cup, given Libra's her home turf. She's got all the food in the fridge that she loves. All the self-care can come a bit easier playing around there. Please do that so that when you get to whenever this was, a few kind of middle of September or the final third of September, your Venus self can enter Scorpio, or we can move with these energies into Scorpio, from that full cup, resourced place, knowing that it's going to be a bit less flowy perhaps, or just a bit more intense than it was the previous month. Anticipating that and fully able to meet that.
Which I think calls for, look where Libra is in your chart, and maybe that is a place of bringing your attention to. I mean, you look at the chart and how, as we said, these trines are really pointing the way to Libra this month. I mean, it is where the equinox is, but it also, and it's really interesting because I feel like right at the beginning of the month when we first started talking, we had Venus, South Node and Black Moon Lilith here all conjuncting. Now that Venus moved on, but I think it was pointing this way to bring attention to the Libra areas of your chart, to just really ensure that that Venus, who is moving down, is really taking that time to really soak in that Venus beauty in its home sign, and keep coming back to that area of your chart, because that feels like a place of where you can resource yourself well before it gets a little bit heavier. Because I really felt, and that's the thing about when we do these transit readings, for the month, we really get an embodied sense as we're talking and the conversations and where it's going as to the energies of the transits. And it really, what I felt as we were speaking about that Venus moving into Scorpio and having that square with Pluto, it felt like I felt that the density that may come in with that. And so just to ensure that the area, Libra area of your chart, and that Venus that is moving through, she's really taking in that beauty. She's soaking up, she's filling her cup from wherever that is. For me, it's in my home. It's, so for me, that will look like, because it's in my fourth house, to really make sure that my home is, feeling like a place of sanctuary, and that my friends can come, and the fridge is full, and everybody's well nourished and nurtured in that space before the bigger work comes in that finale, I guess, also with that Pluto moving out of that final sort of movement through Capricorn. And also, Venus in Pluto's home sign in Scorpio as well, which is contributing to that density that may come.
And do we know when Venus meets up with Pluto?
No, I don't think it meets up again in Capricorn. I think Pluto will move into Aquarius.
I'm just checking my ephemeris.
Yeah.
Okay, late, like, well, wherever Pluto will be, yeah, 8th of December. So I guess we have that homework date of the 18th, 19th of November. Pluto asks us to hand in our Capricorn homework. And then, and which Venus going through Scorpio is going to help us get done. It's going to help us see the bits that are still sticky or the bits that are still intense, and maybe we call in a bit of extra support or whatever we need, or the full resources of Venus in Libra. We can bring that and do what we need to do. And then we have the homework date. Pluto shifts out of Capricorn, and then Venus and Pluto meet up 8th of December.
Okay.
That'll be interesting.
That will be.
If you travel with this stuff consciously, that'll be a really interesting time just to look in yourself and also to look in the world around what's going on.
Yeah. So that is interesting to make note of when that Venus does make that square aspect to Pluto, that the areas that will come into view will be that Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aquarius areas as well, because of that, how Venus and Pluto will be moving with each other into that conjunction early December. Yeah, that's
like
interesting.
Some of that to still those kindred, those same themes, if that's what you're saying, so be present.
But it'd be different. The landscape would have changed because of Pluto into Aquarius.
Yes, totally.
Interesting. Yeah, really interesting. So I think what this square will bring is like really showing us the really final parts that you really need to shed and let go of and send back down to be, recomposted into the underworld for good. Yeah. Which can be quite scratchy because it could mean some big things potentially, being so down in that fixed water sign, It's doing a good job of doing the cleanup, the final cleanup.
Yeah.
And that will run throughout October. And I could imagine as we move into Scorpio season, because we'll also have, the Scorpio new moon and things like that into October, November, as the Sun and Mercury move into that will probably bring more and more focus in that as well to help Venus on its way. But
for sure.
So what we're looking at now is this chart of Mercury ingressing into Libra. So this is now that Mercury has done its retrograde stuff in Virgo and Leo, and now it's really on its way. It's into a new sign. It's something fresh, activating again of this 0 degree mark. It's coming into a close, well, it will conjunct the sun, which like a Mercury cazimi on the 1st of October at 8 degrees. But this is so interesting. Again, we're coming back to that Black Moon Lilith South Node, Venus conjunction point at that 6 degrees as well. So, Black Moon Lilith, as we said, she's not going away. She's still there in the mix.
As I hear you talk, it's like she's not exactly on those first degrees. So it's a loose conjunction, but I could see her or that archetype and the South Node called to letting go, just as a guardian of that space or a threshold keeper of that space, has been there, like you say, the whole time. All these different charts, they're there in Libra, caring for that spot or bringing attention to that spot. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. And what we'll see moving into October, that Sun and Mercury will cross that nodal point, and also Black Moon Lilith on its transits through Libra, which is really interesting. So, this wild, fierce feminine, she's not going away. She's still, I love that image of her being the gatekeeper of that, South Node point. And yeah, just really, with her sickle and just cutting away no longer what serves from the past in terms of how you do that Libra part of your chart. How do you
Mm,
do that relationship? What's holding you back from this relational energy that Libra brings, but doesn't serve? Like there's old stories that are being cut away with the sickle, just leave it in the past. You don't need to bring this with you. Like that story is done now, leave it behind. um
mm.
yeah, it's
And that's the biggest
fascinating.
thing, isn't it? What is there in your mental realm, in that airy mental
Mm,
Libran realm, that is impeding or impacting your relationships in ways that no longer serve South Node?
yes.
That, in the hugely dissolving energies of the now, you could just throw into that whirlpool, and it's taken away. It can become fertilizer for something else. I definitely feel in myself that some of those limiting beliefs, like I realized just a little while ago, some of my most negative beliefs are about other people and other people thinking the worst of me.
Yes.
Kind of brain bending, kind of negative belief. But it made sense to me, and yeah, I just think there's so much content around letting go of some of that. Yeah, there's just so much powerful work that can happen in my mental realm, at least, that sings up so much freedom and enables me to let other people be who they are, and be in their beauty and their freedom, Libra style. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the
that's
projection, I guess I have Libra on the seventh house. The projection is real, and I can project so much, particularly onto, say, my husband. But in the mirror of that, where I've come to after an intense kind of summer of journeying with that, is once again, I'm back to me, I'm back to how I'm framing things. And I can definitely hear Black Moon Lilith in there. Black Moon Lilith does a 9-year cycle through the zodiac. Just slowly given that terrain to work over.
yeah.
And it's very exciting. Yeah. If I could land some of that stuff, I really do start to resolve some of my chironic conundrums. The potential is incredible. Yeah. And what's required is the non-attachment. And I do feel in myself, in my ego, there's a little bit more spaciousness for that right now. And even if that leaves me again, I just try and grab those moments when I can.
Mm.
Like, oh, there's a foot in the door of my ego. Great. What can I let go of now? And I don't beat myself up that I become attached again. That's all right. I'll let go again.
Exactly. And I think this is the journey in the precipice moment that we've sort of got that foot in both worlds. Like again, endings and beginnings. And, we're still, as we're talking about this particular chart, it is eclipse season. So it is that. So it's like it's a bit here and it's a bit of there. So you're still trying to work it out. But sometimes you're gonna be able to completely let go of things, and then it will come back to you and you're like, oh God, I thought I dealt with that. No, that's okay. But you might get another piece that you needed for the next thing. And just it's a slow sort of unraveling, which is probably more stabilizing and promotes more stable change if we're doing it bit by bit and sort of move forward and then a little bit back and then a bit more forward and a little bit back. It sort of allows integration more fully, I think, when it's done that way, as opposed to just fully cut it and just be lost for a bit.
Yeah.
Because everything's just dissolved all of a sudden. That's hard, I think, when that sort of happens. So the lead up to all this is that Mercury has, after the whole Venus ingress into Scorpio, it's Mercury. Mercury takes the reins, and it's Mercury trine Uranus, which we can see here. This energy on its way, and then Mercury opposite Neptune. So it has these conversations with all these outer planets, and then as it moves into ingresses into Libra, just before that, it makes a trine aspect to Pluto. So one, two, three, the three most outer planets, it's just having this conversation of checking in of how are we all going here? You know, what's the messages that we're being sent from these big outer planets, remembering that this, you know, all what's happening is greater than us. You know, maybe that's when we start to really get that message of, oh, these changes are something way beyond what you know, our little earth being here that looks like a tiny little nothing from out there. You know, it's just like, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, Mercury having these big
I'm really
conversations.
hearing the touch in on those key points of that kite shape that we're witnessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this continues, like especially with this Libra nodal point here too, that this is not the end of this kite arrangement. It continues on as the nodes change signs as well into next year. So this is an ongoing. Um, then we have the sun moving onto the south node here as well. And Mercury follows it a day later on the 30th of September, and Mars trines Saturn. So this will be interesting. What's your take on the final transit of this month, which is this Mars trine Saturn on the 30th of September at 2:06 p.m. It's coming back to that warrior in the sand with his armor going rusty, having a conversation with this dissolving boundaries in Saturn in Pisces.
Mm.
They're both not in great shape, are they?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Mars and Saturn have a kindredness or a relationship. They have I guess humans have projected kind of difficult stories onto both of them. You know, hence they're called the two malefics, Mars being the smaller malefic, Saturn being the big one. So if I just play with that image, it's almost like Mars, that soldier, warrior, and my brain would like to play with turning that into a feminine Mars, but I'll just stick with the warrior, which has historically been masculine for now. It's almost like coming to their commander or their superior in that hierarchical Saturnian shaping of the world that we have lived, that patriarchal shaping, only to find that the commander's living a whole different agenda, a Piscean agenda, living some, it would be like going to your commander in the military, let's say, and maybe finding them drinking. That would be a classic, but asking big soul questions or no longer being connected to the original kind of external yang purpose of whatever military operation you were in. So I could imagine that being disconcerting, but the trine aspect, if I add that into play around with it, it's like perhaps that soldier has been asking those same questions, and there's a solidarity of musing or soulful impulse, intuition, even to calling on the water element there, that is asking both of these fairly martial, at times painful, or certainly separating energies to do a retake. That's what's coming at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I love that image of that soldier of Mars going to its commander, and the whole agenda of what they were even fighting, you know, being a warrior for has just changed. And it's like, well, now we're just going to be warriors of peace of the heart, and we're just going to come back to the water and just be here, especially with the moon here as well, and its home sign of Cancer. Then there brings like this emotional body to it, but Mars, it's home. I mean, moon is home here. That's maybe showing Mars a softer side of me, yeah. Again, it's no word. I'm just feeling the water here. Again, it's no words. And that Piscean, it's like, Saturn here is just like, well, I'm just boundaryless now. I'm just, time is an illusion. And maybe, and Mars is like showing up to its commander, and the commander's going, well, what is even war? I don't really know. Like, Mars is going, I don't, I don't know what's going on.
Mars is used to going to that character and receiving instructions or receiving something really direct. What happens when you don't receive a really direct, clear message? I'm riffing on that now as maybe it's the opportunity for Mars, while still feeling deeply uncomfortable in terrain that's not native to Mars, to maybe this is the moment where that character decides to take off the armor and just go for a swim, because heck, nothing's coming down from up the chain. Here's the water. Maybe that trine aspect means something else becomes possible, like de-armoring.
Yes.
Giving it a go for what the heck. Even if then you come out and you put it all back on again.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's like,
but I still imagine that it's still quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two very active agents in very watery terrain probably won't feel comfortable.
It's like it, and I just see the moon here is like the mermaid like beckoning Mars to come along. Yes. It's like, come on. Yeah. It's nice in here. And Mars is dipping his toe and goes, but it's really cold. Like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. It's a whole different world. Yeah.
It's not comfortable, but what else is Mars going to do? Like,
because remembering this is like Mars is marooned on a desert island for a bit, retrograding. It's not just the 1-2 month, let's say, movement through a sign that it might usually do. Might feel a bit stranded here, and in that sense of being stranded there in Pisces might take up some of the opportunities of that watery terrain in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. What else are you going to do, mate?
What else are you going to do?
How many invitations from the mermaid do you need before you get in? Or from the siren,
Exactly.
Maybe the siren isn't that bad. Or maybe she's got some insights. Yeah.
And because this is a third quarter moon, it's a waning moon. I mean, a waxing moon. It's no waning, the waning moon. It's coming, and this is a Libra, and it's building into a Libra new moon eclipse, which happens on the 3rd of October, which is the final eclipse in Libra, which is so. Yeah, even more like there's nothing to really grasp onto here at all. Like we're in eclipse season and everything's going a bit wanky danky. Don't really know what's really happening. What else are you going to do, Mars?
Yeah, all your usual strategies are a bit useless here.
Yeah.
So you could just sit there and do nothing, but you could also try something new.
Yeah. And
which requires then a beginner's mind and putting the ego down and not being very good maybe at what you're trying, like some of those classic cliches.
Gosh, that's it. I'm feeling like, and just thinking all that relational stuff that's happening in Libra and how that eclipse is leading up to that. It's like two people coming together that they've been journeying for a while, and all of a sudden there's been, because of all these changes and letting go, they have to have a new conversation, but a new approach because the other one wasn't working. And so how do you do that? And it just feels a bit scratchy and awkward, but it's what has to happen next, because you can't move through into the next phase without doing that.
I like that new approach.
Yeah, but it's not an easy new approach. It's going to feel awkward, but it is what it is, because it's the beginning of something. Yeah, that it's like that cardinal energy of beginning something new that's not, and I'm thinking also when I'm picturing this is the brain neurons in the pathways forming. When you're forming a new pathway, it's not easy and it takes practice, but eventually it will become just second nature. You won't even have to really think because it'll be just there. But to create that pathway in the first place requires work and development and awkwardness and contorted, and coming back to that contortedness that we spoke about at that Pisces full moon. It's just not easy, but it's necessary to take the new steps that are being required and called upon us for what's to come.
Which is absolutely something that Mars can do.
Yes.
Mars is very good at taking steps. So
that's what he does.
They might be uncomfortable, new habits, new neural pathway steps, but that's probably better for Mars, or Mars is probably happier doing something than nothing. Probably a good challenge.
Yeah.
Better to have a challenge than nothing. So,
well, I think maybe, this is the point to give Mars a job. Purpose
give Mars an awkward new approach to action in your Cancer house, which for me is the fourth, but whatever house it is for you.
Yeah.
I'll take that away as an interesting nugget to
I'm
see how it feels at the time, at the end of what is this, end of September?
Yes. Yeah. End of September in preparation for the new moon. So it's like you've experienced the whole lunar cycle from what started at the Virgo full moon, new moon back in the start of September, and we've journeyed this lunar cycle, and we've got to this part going, right, we have to take a new approach to this. Okay, Mars, we're going to give you a new job. It's not going to be comfortable, but we know you can do it because you are moving forward. But we also know that you're going to retrograde at some point in this area, but that's okay because, we're building some tools in preparation for that retrograde.
Yeah, building tools.
Yeah, building tools. So
we'll come back to this.
Yes, we will come back to
practice this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will have to come back to it because Mars is here for until April next year. So we're going to get really good at awkward moving forward. It's like we're forced into awkward movement, but it's okay because it's in cardinal, it's something new, and we have to do it because there's no other way we're going to get out of it. We have to do it.
Yeah. So, and it reminds me of your shoulder exercises. They're very particular, and they're very awkward, and they're very what's the word, kind of like a setup. They're not even doing anything useful necessarily, but you just have to do them over and over again. And what do you know? It is literally, tangibly, slowly part of that de-armoring and opening up the heart space. It's a beautiful analogy.
It is. So Mars, and maybe now, at this point in the cycle when we're looking at this, which is, early September, is to start looking at what Mars can do in your, house of Cancer, just sensing what this could be and start looking around for jobs for Mars to do. So it can, and so it has that sense of achievement that Mars loves.
And no doubt more insights coming in at the full moon, I reckon, or in the big time.
Yes.
More clarity. But again, because Mars is in a cardinal house and there was so much going on around those cardinal points with the nodes. And so more will come in even if you can't work out. Right. What is an awkward new approach that you could try in your Cancer house, even if that's not clear right this second, probably will become clear.
Yeah, especially in that Aries full moon, that's also an eclipse, I'm pretty sure. Can't remember.
Oh, you mean following?
Yeah, the following full moon, which would be interesting because that's Mars's home sign, but it will be, I think, eclipsed. A very late eclipse, perhaps. I'm not too sure. I can't remember. But that is for October. So that's September. But what's coming up in October, as we said, Libra new moon eclipse, which is the 3rd of October, we have Jupiter station retrograding in Gemini, Pluto stationing direct. So here we go. Like, this is it. With Pluto stationing direct. Venus will be opposite Uranus, Sun and Mercury square Pluto at the same time. Sun square Mars, talking about Mars. So now we start to get a picture of why this is start to be important, that Mars is given a job to do when it starts to come up against some of these squares. We've got the Aries full moon, Venus moving into Sagittarius, and the Mercury and Sun both moving into Scorpio. So that is coming up for October. So this is not the end of the story. These stories are like there's hints of beginnings. There's things that really need to be looked at now to be tied up, and that Pluto and Capricorn homework that's due at the end of November. Yeah, big. Yeah, it feels like a big lead-in month to what's to come.
Yeah, it's so great to have this heads up, this chance to just fine-tune the antenna a little bit more and pay a bit more attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Grace. This has been amazing. Tell us what you've got coming up, what you're doing out in the world. How can people contact you?
Yes, I guess the main point of contact would be my website, Priestess Your Life. I'm currently not very good on Instagram, but yes, messages from Priestess Your Life will get through. I offer astrology readings. I work a lot with Lilith and Chiron as wound motifs in the natal chart because, let's face it, it's the painful places that often push us to ask questions and find the answers or find new possibilities. So I do a lot of that. But what I want to expand into, some of my, if you like, Aquarian vision, is to be able to support you as you're rolling through years. So able to companion you on a multi-year, long-term adventure, so that as you approach these rites of passage, these astrological rites of passage, or even the physical ones, like something like menopause, I can be sending you stuff like, hey, you're coming into your Chiron return, or you're coming into your Uranus opposition. Wow, what an amazing cocoon's coming up, and here's some grist for your meal. Here are the dates. My vision is that, yeah, we all can be entering into these powerful portals of transformation more consciously. So therefore, making more, kind of grabbing onto the opportunities to transform more consciously and more gracefully, rather than feeling like, sometimes I witness people and it looks like they're running into a brick wall or they're just really floundering. I love how astrology gives us literally like dates for the light at the end of the tunnel. And that means we can pace ourselves through these often longer transitions. And fundamentally, yeah, to priestess our way through them, by which I mean just render them sacred with our awareness and intention. So that's my vision. And so for that, I need people's birth details. So if that interests you, again, on my website, and I'll send you a link for whatever the show notes, that a way to sign up with you sending me your birth details so I can create a natal chart and know when to get in touch with you. That's probably the stuff that I'm most excited about at the moment. And what does that look like, and also the possibilities of connecting with other people in similar transitions. So like circles of Chiron return people going through that transition. How can we learn from each other? Yeah, as you know, there's just so much nourishment in circles. So yeah, those are, at the moment, those are my two. Having had to like let the tarot stuff go, those are my two good bones, just biting on the astrology bone. What else can I offer there? It's really that rite of passage companioning in a way that doesn't have to be a one-on-one session. I guess I'm interested in opening out the possibilities. What are the ways where I can invite you into reflection that you can do yourself? Yeah, learn the astrology from yourself. All your study group stuff makes my heart sing. Anyway, so yes, priestessyourlife.com is where you can find me.
And we'll put the
But
link
yeah,
in the
interested
show.
also to hear what's bubbling in your cauldron. It's always a very creative mix in there.
Yes, I have a lot, but I just wanted to say also sign up to Grace's awesome newsletter. Grace is known for her beautiful journaling and the words that she expresses in her newsletters are just so divine. And yeah, sign up to her newsletter at least. It'd be well worth it. It's just so beautiful. So
You.
good. Such a rich offering. Are you still doing the books, the diaries, the journals?
Yeah, I for a decade I have created a journal to help people, yeah, reflect particularly on their life through the lunar cycle and to have a place to anchor, say, full moon prayers and new moon prayers. Because of the workover that's happened in the last 6 months, just in me, the soul questions kind of brought through the cosmos, through the astro, through my husband. I need to do that slightly differently. So it's changing form a little bit, but the invitation to reflect on yourself throughout the year in alignment with these, with the lunar cycle in particular, I will still put that out in some form. It just won't be quite the same this year.
Beautiful.
So yeah, you could stay tuned in. I'll be hoping to get that out the door in October. Yeah.
Beautiful. They're so I'm delighted to hear. It's such a deeply rich offering, those journals, especially that you put out in the world. And it's really helped me over the years to navigate some, big terrain that was coming up because I could map it through your journals. So good. Thank you, Grace.
Awesome.
And just I'm deeply honored that you've come here and shared your wisdom with us today. And I just wanted to thank you and yeah, look out for Grace. She's one to get in touch with and to journey with. It's deeply rich experience. So thank you. I'm deeply humbled and very grateful that you have shown up. So good. So good.
Wonderful to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy. So my offerings, I've released last month very quietly under the beams of all the things that were happening, Mercury retrograde and all. The Temple of Nuit Patreon, which you can sign up to. I'll put the link there. So the Temple of Nuit Patreon, which is an astrological study group, where we go into more personal experiences, and it's like we share the transits together, a real embodiment of what's happening. That's also a monthly circle. There's different tiers you can sign up to, but ultimately it's a study group guided by Nuit, who is like the goddess, Egyptian goddess of the night, showing us her beauty of the cosmos, and we definitely feel her presence and being woven by her in that study group. It's a very powerful group that we got there, and we share lunar prayers and how it shows up in our houses, and it's a very dynamic and rich cauldron of the astrology and embodiment of astrology. My dear friend Natasha Colchester, who Grace and I have both worked with, her and I are doing a shamanic drum making next weekend here at Central Highlands, Victoria, which is very exciting. We haven't done one for a while, so we're looking forward to this magic cauldron that we do. It's so delicious and so rich that that's so we never know what's actually going to happen until we're in there, but it's always incredible. We've got Wild Earth Magic Wilderness Immersion that's happening in October, where we take a group of women out to the wilderness, out sort of Grampians way if you live in Victoria, Australia, and we set up camp out there for almost 2 weeks actually, and we live in community. We do ritual and ceremony, and you go out and sit on the land for 3 nights doing a solo, and you come back, and yeah, lots of storytelling, lots of ritual, lots of deep soul work. And already it's already, as soon as you say yes to the journey, it's unfolding, and it's very powerful. We're all already having big experiences. That journey is being guided by Golden Dragon, who's the power animal for that journey. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's definitely here and very present. It's so strong and very powerful and very amazing, and it's all linked up to the goddess Sophia and Kuan Yin and Isis. Like, it's so strong. It's so strong. It's really incredible. So that's happening in October. End of October. So there's still places. So if you're interested, we'll put the links all below. And January 25, we're looking at doing the 12th and maybe the 13th Inanna journey to the underworld. So if you're interested in going the path of Inanna, the goddess of the queen of heaven and earth, down to the underworld in a very held and conscious space, get in touch with me. And also I'm still doing one-on-one readings, and I think that is all. That is it. That's it. That's all I've got. That's a lot. That's enough.
That's a lot.
That's enough. As well as being mother of 4 kids and,
yes,
being a community friend and all the rest of it. So it's a lot, but it's really, I love it. It is, I work, my life is my work and vice versa. So it's all embodied and all tangled up all together, because that's what happens when you live your life path and your passion as the wholeness of who you are. You show up to all of it. So that is happening. And also, if you are loving what you're seeing here on the Sentient Sky podcast, with a bit of hope that Becky will be back. So just holding her again in our hearts as she navigates this big terrain that she's experiencing at the moment. But yeah, sign up to our Patreon. If you're loving what you're hearing, please press thumbs up and like it, because of the algorithms. That's really important to get this work out there and to share it far and wide. And also comments. You've been given a lot of homework for September, and we'd love to know what's happening. How are you experiencing these transits? And what's your embodiment? What's your felt experience of what we've just spoken about? We want to hear it, because the more that we can hear it from you all, we get to learn more. We get to learn together. We're all teachers, we're all students here. And this is the beauty of astrology, because we are all under this cosmic cycle of mapping and stuff like that. So, and we're all embodying it, whether we know it or not. So we'd love to hear your experience of what we've just spoken about through that crazy, wild dissolving in that Pisces full moon to the more intense sort of transit with that Venus going to Scorpio, and then coming up with that Mercury sort of buzziness and the Mars in Cancer. We'd love to hear all of it, of what your experience is. So thank you for listening. You've got this far. It was an epic month, and we look forward to October coming up. Thanks for listening. So much love to you all. Thanks, Grace, for sharing your wisdom, and we'll see you next month.
Journey well.
Journey well. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Sentient Sky. Follow us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/thesentientsky for episode updates, our contact info, events and offerings, and to connect with us in our co-created community. Thank you so much to each and every patron for their support and presence within that community.
Deep gratitude to our ancestors, guides, and to the green world of the earth and the cosmic sky. May we ever be acting in service to the highest good of all beings. We pay our deepest respect to the First Nations people and to the elders past, present and emerging, to the Wurrung and the Jurjur Wurrung country people, We give great thanks to the continuing connection to the land, sky, sea, and their communities. We also like to express our deepest of gratitudes to our own ancestors and to the land, sea, and sky of their origins. Both of us would like to thank our teachers, families, friends, and communities that support us and inspire us in this cosmic work. Especially big love to our beautiful children for whom this is ultimately for.
Great thanks to my brother, Daniel Van Horsen, for allowing us to use his original music, whom you can find on Facebook for details on his offerings as a session musician and sound engineer. Until next time, see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Much love. Bye.